Number 2044 had once practiced cutting a scarecrow by imagining cutting his enemies in his not-too-distant future. He imagined that as the founder of the cult, he had enough power to stop Han Chun kill. But suddenly, his ideas were shot down by a man who brought him a new assignment. He asked number 2044 why he was practicing alone again. He thought it would help his body become stronger, to which the guy replied that he still lacked skill, and he was a level 2 assassin. The guy opened the mission packet. His new target was the Phantom Heavenly Sword Master of the Gong Songsa faction. He likes women, but he prefers money to the military. The guy should have killed him without leaving any trace behind. It's a good chance to show his skill and training. Gong Songsa was such a rascal that he could beat up a man and take his wife instead of the money people owed him. Despite having a royal concubine, he was able to condescend to a commoner. But the royal concubine has no reason to be jealous. She's quite young after all. She's just worried that it might negatively affect Gongsuansu's reputation. If Gongsuansu continues to develop his activities, he will be able to become the ruler of the world soon. But all of Gongsuansu's dreams were thwarted by the appearance of the 2044th. He's not going to continue listening to this nonsense. The guy stabbed the Ghost Heavenly Sword Master of Gongsuansu's faction with a single swing of his sword. After successfully completing the mission, the guy had to report back to the person who gave him the task. He said he stabbed Gongsuansu because he thought that if he used the technique, it would leave too many traces. The cult kidnapped the 2044th as a child, so he doesn't even know his own name his whole life. He's been doing nothing but honing his combat technique. At first there were many other guys with him, but only he himself remained. His name was Muqian, and his number was 2044. The guy was sitting quietly, reminiscing about the old days with the rest of the guys, when suddenly 3 strangers burst in on him. When he inquired who they were, the strangers didn't hesitate, citing that it wasn't much fun to get right down to business with a guy. Because of Muqian, the strangers of the first-level assassins were suspended, but the guy was put under the direct command of the founder of the Black Death clan. The strangers wanted to destroy and put an end to Muqian's allegedly false reputation. But the world of the demonic cult is built on natural selection to obey the strong and try to become strong themselves. At the same time, the head of the Black Death clan was chatting with the man who was handing out quests and making choices in Black Death. They were talking about the number 2044. Looks like this guy's innate abilities aren't designed for killing. He'd be better suited to be a warrior than an assassin. His passion for martial arts is so great that the guy can learn the truth of the skill on his own, without the help of a teacher. The level 1 assassins noticed that the guy would definitely live up to their expectations if he became a warrior, but right now they need assassins. That's the problem. But they clearly didn't expect the guy to hide an even more dangerous power within himself. Thanks to the Tier 1 guys, the guy realized what he still needs to work on. They were amazed that the guy, though not exactly weak, wanted to get even stronger. But if they had studied martial arts, they should have known that you couldn't stop until you reached Tarn's level. As he left, the guy explained to the level 1 guys that from now on, his name was not number 2044, but Muqian. The boy wondered if it was possible to reach the limit in martial arts and what kind of energy was emanating from his sword. He wondered what the difference was between it and the power of the weapon itself, which is not created by introducing foreign forces into it, Muqian thought. The senior of the Jackal Pack group couldn't believe that Muqian Da had never seriously trained in sword wielding. They were just in need of an assassin for a case, and the senior ordered his subordinate to invite Muqian to his place. After a while the boys were already at the headquarters of the Jackal Pack. The elder had called them together to give them a very important task. Muqian realized that these were the very descendants of the very same cult that 80 years ago had put up a fierce fight with them now, rather than starting to join forces and create new Jiangxia. And the boys' mission was to gather as much information as possible about the plans of the Asu blood cult. One from PN suggested that the guys get to know each other since they are on the same team. After getting acquainted and learning that Muqian of the Black Death, Marsic realized that this is the one who is a member of the best assassination squad, yes, and directly subordinate to the cult founder. But time was running out and Muqian suggested the boys to hurry up as time was already very tight. Qin-chun warned the boys to be careful, for their troops might be stationed in the forest. Barely having time to say that, Jin-chun realized that they were exactly where Jiangxia blood cult was. The guys thought that they had failed, but Muqian suggested that they should not get upset because these guys were just guarding the area and suggested that the guys should deal with them quickly and there would be no problems. But it had already been reported to their lord that the boys had invaded the Western Territory. As expected, the lord immediately ordered to send a necromancer and more Jiangxia. Marsic thought it was strange that Muqian could easily handle these things, at a time when even he, the leader, Muqian, couldn't easily do so. After getting rid of all the critters, the boys noticed that an intimidating silhouette had appeared at the very top of the spruce tree. It was the necromancer, who at that very second, with his bloody hand, commanded those laid to rest on the battlefield to rise up and give repose to these thickets. The guys don't quite seem to realize who they're dealing with, as the necromancer has incredible power. Suddenly, Muqian noticed that there was a target among them who had been killed during the mission. It seems that the rumors about Muriam's corpses turning into Jiangxia are true, and since the invasion had already been detected, time was running out, so Muqian decided to leave the dead men to the boys and went off to find their base. Muqian couldn't fail this mission. If there really are such a powerful necromancer and so many Jiangxia out there, it means they are hiding somewhere nearby. It is necessary to destroy their defense line, for the defending troops were obviously not far from the shelter, Muqian thought. After finding the very secret place where the Jiangxia are created, the guy realized that there was no way he could handle them alone. Suddenly, the founder of the Asu blood cult, Sama M, appeared out of nowhere and suggested that Muqian would make a good Jiangxia. Muqian asked the founder of the blood cult why he needed these Jiangxia. Is he going to start a war again, or is he planning to gather all his supporters? But the founder of the blood cult, not to say he was much interested in that, and it seems that Muqian was clearly not on board with them. The Asu blood cult is the successor of the blood cult that once destroyed 40% of their powers. It took the demonic cult almost 50 years to recover, and now they are building up their power again. Muqian preferred to report it immediately, but it was difficult for him to get out of the cave as everything in this cave was soaked with poisonous fumes. The founder of the blood cult wondered how long Muqian would be able to hold out against them in such a state. But after all, the better the skills, the more powerful Jiangxia would come out of him. The guys with whom Muqian was in the same company thought that he had simply abandoned them and disappeared. One of the guys was sure that he had his own reasons. Would Muqian really die like this? Was all his training worthless? He thought. Muqian began to think that his strength was clearly not enough. How can he become stronger and be the same guy to defeat these things? The founder of the blood cult was confident that Muqian would soon become part of his Jiangxia squad. Muqian didn't need anything anymore. He just wanted to know if there was a limit to skill and if it was possible to reach it in martial arts. The guy wondered how the energy and power of the sword was formed. Could it be that the otherworldly force in him was the very energy? It is said that an outstanding master can face several dozen enemies at a time. How can this be achieved? Muqian thought. From the very beginning, it didn't seem so difficult for Muqian, because cutting is quite simple. All you have to do is swing the sword. The founder of the blood cult rejoiced when he saw hope in Muqian's eyes. He could very easily turn hope into despair, but many years ago, a demonic cult kidnapped several thousand young children and trained them. Of course, the best children were selected to make them masters of the highest class. That's how the assassination squad was born, under the direct command of the Black Death cult leader. Muqian was then assigned the number 2044. Only those who have passed several checks can get the name. As for the dark spirit within Muqian, it is not malignant or whatever, it is just dark. The hieroglyphics in the guy's name Muqian literally translated as black odor. The founder of the blood cult was greatly concerned that Muqian had wiped out all the new Jiangxia in one blow. After dealing with everyone, Muqian asked the founder of the blood cult to remember well the name of the one who would one day reach the pinnacle of mastery. The founder of the blood cult promised to remember his name and threatened that they would definitely meet again. Muqian had inhaled too many poisonous vapors and was starting to choke, but he needed to get rid of all those things. Climbing to the top of the spruce, one noticed the veil collapsing. The situation seemed to be getting out of control. The guys realized that they were in big trouble and needed to find Muqian immediately and do the legwork from there. Eventually the veil fell, but it wasn't entirely clear what could have destroyed such a strong barrier. The boys still managed to find Muqian, and after taking him, they started running away from there. The Imperial troops have already arrived to fight the bloody Asu remote. They'll take care of the rest. Thanks to the Imperial army, not only the mission, but also the lives of the guys are saved. The soldiers of the Imperial army were surprised at how the guys passed through, because the veil cannot be penetrated from the outside. Something must have happened to the founder, the soldiers thought. General OK Yonkai ordered all the troops to move forward. After all, they dared to threaten the safety of the emperor and the people. None of these subhumans who desecrated the bodies of the dead deserved to live. Squad leader Im Chong also ordered all the troops to exterminate all these non-humans. While the troops were fighting, one of his subordinates denounced to his master that the blood cult of Asu had entered the battle from the emperor's army. When rumors spread that the blood cult were planning an attack, the imperial palace sent troops to stop them. And so many Asu masters and their jiangshi were wiped out. The founder of the devil cult, Han Chun-gil, realized that the case was taking an interesting turn, and he wondered if the devil woman from Muqian was involved. Offered his master to train Muqian in swordsmanship and make him a master. The founder of the devil cult, Han Chun-gil, didn't mind at all and told his subordinate to do as he knows how. Muqian's mentor is called Yo Baek Phantom Death. From now on, he'll be teaching him sword lessons. Muqian noticed that Yu Baek was clearly not just a master. He moved incredibly fast and was damn strong. After the first fight, Yo Baek realized that Muqian could be something worthwhile. But the guy should keep in mind that sometimes in training he will launch surprise attacks. Muqian was capable, but he clearly lacked vigilance. Besides, Yo Baek had heard that the guy was more suited to being a master than an assassin, and Yo Baek understood why. Muqian was supposed to come in after a full recovery, but he wanted to start practicing sooner. Yo Baek explained to the guy that it can't be like that. After all, it's not like he doesn't have another spare life in his pocket. Yo Baek admitted that he had never met someone more reckless and stupid than Muqian before. Yu Baek liked Muqian's look, and he would probably even manage to make him one of the best cult masters. Yo Baek explained to Muqian that in the faction, someone who has reached the edge is called Wajen, translated as those who have reached the edge, and those who have reached the limit are called Hangan, translated as those who have known darkness. But in their cult as known to Muqianu, there is Gikma, translated as the limit of magic, and Tama, translated as beyond magic. Yo Baek asked Muqian what he thought was the most important thing in martial arts. It doesn't matter how strong a warrior is, because without comprehending the truth, everyone will be at a dead end. This can only be done through a very strong desire, such that one is unable to just sit still because of the constant thirst for power, and no other way. Yo Baek still decided that he wanted to show Muqian a small manifestation of the truth. Yu Baek had no doubt that Muqian would dodge, and promised to try to teach him everything he knew himself. Yu Baek couldn't promise that the kid would get to Tam's level, but he promised to do his best to do so. The preceptor showed that in front of Muqian was not a small river current, but a powerful stream breaking through the rock, and asked him to repeat it. It was Muqian's dream, and now it looks like he has a chance to fulfill it, so the guy will be adamant to follow the will of his mentor Yo Baek. As one ancestor of Yu Baek said, when the pain of a weapon and its wielder match, even a dry branch can destroy a mountain. This is the legendary power of the sword. You can, of course, forcibly create an energy similar to his power. However, it takes a lot of time, and the difference in effect is obvious. If the power of the sword's energy is so astounding, then what is its true power capable of? Thought Muqian. Nearly 10 years had passed, and Muqian still hadn't fully understood what the power of the sword was. It seems that Yu Baek hadn't even noticed yet how he had actually reached this level himself. While Muqian was meditating, Yo Baek came up to him and asked him how he was doing. Muqian replied that everything was going well, except that the guy couldn't get through the last stage. Yo Baek explained to Muqian that everything has its time. The guy needed to practice a little bit, and the right path would bed itself in front of him. Muqian thanked his mentor and remarked that he was much more thoughtful today than you their first meeting. Yo Baek must be getting old, because he thinks of Muqian as his last student. So he let his guard down because he's in his 70s. Yo Baek decided to ask how old Muqian was. He said he was 27. Yo Baek didn't expect such an answer because Muqian looked younger. He must have studied Chuangsul, he thought. Muqian hurriedly consoled his mentor and explained that he had not studied Chuangsul. It was with his help that the preceptor was so preserved, but that was not the case, for as he developed, his inner strength began to affect his outer appearance. But that was only on the outside, while on the inside everything was slowly aging, so the mentor asked him to be careful about delaying aging, whichever way Muqian chose. Muqian has decades more to learn before the guy can come down from the mountains. At first, Muqian took it as a joke, but after a year there, he was curious about what finally happened to the bloody cult of Asu. Another year later, he decided to ask his mentor if he had heard of the cult of darkness, to which the mentor replied that no. Isn't it obvious that he's been living in the mountains for quite some time? A few years later, Muqian decided to inquire if there were still masters alive who could recognize the true power of the sword. The path, abandoned by countless warriors, did not seem easy for the lad, for it was like climbing an endless tower without any precise direction. Yet despite all this, Mu Qian still did well. Mu Qian's mentor, Yu Bek, congratulated him on becoming the strongest sword warrior. Now for the rest of his life, Mu Qian will have to prove his own power. Mu Qian has reached the level he was aiming for, but the guy still feels that something is missing because it seemed to him that this was not the limit at all. The first time a divine sword master named Guvi was able to pass through Huanzhen and reach Henzhen, it was something like going to the Tam level, but no one in the demonic cult had ever been able to reach it, so everyone started to rely on the older generation. So the boys decided to look for answers in the Dark Ghosts Art compendiums. After all, this compendium was written by Guvi in his old age and contained all the knowledge of the techniques existing in Pahi. If one masters the point set forth in it, one will be able to accumulate inner strength with the help of vital energy and naturally realize the truth. Learning that knowledge will only benefit Mu Qian, so you can already start learning the Pahi language. But since languages are taught elsewhere, Mentor Yu Bek explained to Mu Qian that it was time for him to go down. As they descended the mountain, Mu Qian spotted an old man on a cart and asked if he had a spare seat. If the lad doesn't mind riding in company, there's room, the old man replied. The passengers who were traveling in the cart decided to ask Mu Qian where he was going. After learning that the guy was heading to Cheonan, they had all already agreed to be traveling companions and take the guy to his desired destination. One of the comrades decided to ask if Mu Qian was married. He replied that he was practicing Donqigong and that was why he dared not even dream of getting married. Donqigong is a battle technique that can greatly improve skills, but it has too many disadvantages, so few people study it, the comrade stated. The girl sitting next to her was curious about the shortcomings, at which the old man became angry, for no one allowed the girl to interfere in the conversation. Stopping in town, the old man decided to treat the guy to some kind of drink and asked him to choose whatever his heart desired. A scuffle broke out in the establishment, and the old man thought, if the likes of these people are the face of the faction these days, the world is about to end. Mu Qian, seeing what was going on, suggested that the old man help the boys, as he had studied martial arts. The old man would have easily defeated those guys, but those 5 guys proudly called themselves the 5 Greats from Shaman's Ridge, and they were all masters. So it's not easy to beat them. Meanwhile, Mentor Yu Bek reflected that in order to train this guy he had to sacrifice the scenery, and the fact that the mentor let the boy go was like letting a tiger loose in the village. Yu Bek hoped he wouldn't attack someone important. Seeing that Mu Qian had destroyed all 5 of them, the old man could not believe his eyes. Is this guy really so strong? He thought. The cut areas were very smooth, the guy was able to dissect the metal pole with a single swing. He was most likely using Kangi, a term that categorized the visible manifestations of Qi energy in martial arts. The old man didn't seem to give a high value to Mu Qian. After all, his skills were those of someone who had already reached the Huajin level. Mu Qian arrived at Shontan, showing the appointment order. The guy went through security. At the entrance, Mu Qian was greeted by Pan Tain, who inquired where the guy was coming from. Later learning that Mu Qian was a level 1 Black Death assassin and that he was from the best squad in the demonic cult, Pan Tain was shocked. Mu Qian's world is a very cruel place, so he asked Pan Tain to take care of him. Mu Qian asked Pan Tain to introduce him to his subjects as Yu Hyang, for it was better not to tell anyone who he really was so as not to arouse suspicion. There are about 1,000 local cult masters in the city, and about 100 have been sent on a mission. Not everyone in the city lives by the law, but as we know, any illegal activity requires a lot of effort. Mu Qian wanted as few people as possible to know, and he also asked Pan Tain to bring it to everyone's attention not to hang around and certainly not to try to secretly spy on the guy. While out on the town, Mu Qian noticed a grown man beating a very young girl and decided to help her. Grabbing the man's hand, Mu Qian wondered if he thought he was overreacting since it was only a child. After learning that the little girl had stolen, Mu Qian decided to pay the man for her and explained to him that he wouldn't get away with it so easily next time. After the experience, Mu Qian decided to approach the little girl and inquire if she was okay and ask her why she stole. Couldn't she earn money? The little girl told Mu Qian that her mother was sick, so she was always lying down, and no one would hire the girl because of her age. Mu Qian reassured the girl and asked her to take him to his house. He wanted to entrust one job, but it requires permission from the girl's mother. Upon reaching the girl's house, the guy realized that her mother was very sick and needed to be taken to a healer immediately. Mu Qian saved the life of a little girl's mother by taking her to a healer. The woman was very grateful to Mukyan but did not know how she could repay him for everything. Mukyan explained that he didn't need anything, and from now on, the woman and her daughter could live with him and work in his house, because it was better than their previous place. Mukyan explained to the little girl that her mom needed a rest, so he suggested she go outside. The girl had seen others fighting in the market a couple of times and asked Mukyan to teach her martial arts. Mukyan decided to teach the girl the coolest technique called Ghost Void, and if the girl mastered it, would become incredibly strong. Mukyan explained to the girl that other children should not be told about this method and that they should practice every day, morning and evening. Suddenly Pantane ran up to Mukyan and told him that in the Nobleman's Mountains, mountain brigands had attacked the wagons and stolen the contents. Since it was a transportation of war fund, he sent 5 masters with them, and if brigands dared to attack those wagons, they must have been brigands from Mount Deslo. Mukyan immediately went there, for there are about 200 brigands and craftsmen living there, but it wouldn't take long. Upon reaching his destination, Mukyan decided to directly ask the chief robber where all the stolen goods were, but answering that he had already managed to sell everything, Mukyan decided to destroy their main. However, another bandit got in Mukyan's way. They deceived him and decided to attack him together. Mukyan had already fought the same number of opponents last time, but things were very different then. One of the robbers came upon Mukyan, but he certainly destroyed him. When he saw this, all the other bandits started running away from the boy. Mukyan defeated the impregnable fortress overnight and, after ordering his subordinate to take back all that the brigands had taken away, he set off back. The boxes contained about 10,000 silver coins, and if you added up the bribes going to cover this incident, the guys were clearly coming out at a disadvantage. Mukyan already gave orders to the others to find what was missing. By the way, such silver weapons are hard to find, so they will be easily dispersed. Pantane ordered them to sell everything in the crates and begin transportation, and ordered Mukyan to personally escort the 10 of them. There shouldn't be any problem since they had already made arrangements with the central department. Back at home, Mukyan was met by the same girl who missed him a lot as the guy had been away for so long. Even though it was deep night, the girl stayed awake and waited for Mukyan's return. The girl's mom explained to Mukyan that the girl actually waited for him every day. After this incident, the faction's business took a turn for the better. Although some things were stolen from them, they still completely defeated the brigands and made money from transporting goods. In addition to hiring warriors and being able to destroy the main camp of bandits, the situation had changed so much that there were almost no bandits near Nagyang. After 3 years, things got very quiet, and so Mukyan finally got the chance to take up training. After a moment, Seoun came riding in on a horse, and Mukyan noticed that her riding skills had improved. Seoun had just returned from a nearby village and decided to show Mukyan what she had learned. Mukyan was amazed at the girl's skill, for not long ago she was such a baby and now she was 16. Mukyan's servant reported to him that the central staff was simply delighted with his merits and was therefore rewarding him commensurately. Thus Mukyan is appointed as the Great White General of the Thousand Wolves Society at the location of Kolgyukwon. Pantane solemnly congratulated Mukyan on his promotion and new position. Mukyan was unaccustomed to hearing a formal speech from Pantane, even though he was higher in rank now, and it made sense. Mukyan has been given time to settle all his affairs, so to arrive to make it to the central headquarters he has about 2 months. First of all, Mukyan decided to check on his finances as he wanted to make some gifts before leaving. Mukyan decided to leave his house to Seo Yun and her mom. Since the girl was already an adult, he didn't allow her to choose a room of her choice. It was very embarrassing for the woman to accept such a gift, as Mukyan had already helped them a lot. Mukyan also decided to give the woman the house documents and the house money. The woman didn't want to take it all in, but Mukyan still insisted since she still needs to get So-Yun married. The next day, Mukyan set off, realizing that he probably wouldn't see them again. The woman did not understand why Mukyan was leaving so suddenly, as she had never repaid him for the help he had given her. Mukyan tells Seo-Yun that he has to go on a long trip, and while he's gone she has to listen to her mom carefully and do whatever she says. Seo-Yun promised Mukyan to obey her mom and become stronger by the time he returns. Upon arriving in the town of Kolgyukwon, Mukyan immediately approached the master and greeted him. Master had heard that Mukyan had become much stronger, so it was time for him to learn the strongest technique of the Thousand Wolves Society and lead the warriors like a great white general. Mukyan was bored of watching the regiments and squads as they all did the same thing. He wanted to get out of there and do his own training. Mukyan ordered one of the soldiers that he would train them next time. The guy objected, because it was against the rules, and if a real battle suddenly broke out, they wouldn't be able to cooperate with him. Muqian explained that he should not worry about it, because if it happens, he will lead them into battle, and the one behind him will follow. After putting a wig on the soldier, Muqian sent the boy to train the platoons. The training was going well until the master arrived. The master suspected something wrong and decided to check the training and noticed that instead of Muqian another person was conducting the training. He demanded an explanation as to where Muqian had gone. Finding Muqian, the master demanded an explanation as to why he was doing solitary training while he should be training the others. Muqian explained to his master calmly enough that he had decided to practice alone. The master expressed his displeasure, believing that Muqian was putting himself above the training of the troops. Muqian seemed to have angered the master very much, and he ordered him to pull out his sword quickly. The master wanted to see the full power of Muqian, and if there was something there to see, maybe he would forgive him. Muqian was surprised that the master was asking him to show himself, as he hadn't done so in years. But when Muqian drew his sword, the master was astonished, for this sword was full of power. The master decided to show Muqian what true strength was and wanted to demonstrate a technique that could take down 10 fortresses. Whether it is the martial art energy of the cosmos, the power to crush a mountain with one's bare hands, or something controlling all life in the universe is unknown. Muqian was sure of only one thing, that one must hone one's skills until one is blue in the face to crush one's enemies and improve oneself by overcoming death. That's what martial arts are all about. Muqian began to use sword twirling. This technique was so powerful that the master thought it was the end. However, Muqian was easily able to stop. He was impressed with the master's technique and thanked him for teaching him, although he did not know how to redeem himself to the master. The master was impressed with Muqian's strength and allowed him not to attend the general training sessions as promised. The Lord had heard that Muqian had become a real martial artist, and he decided to call the boy to his house to find out about his future plans. Thanks to Muqian, their enterprise has grown considerably, even managing to create 3 new guilds, but this has led to conflict with the Ordering clan. The Ordering clan is small in numbers, only 200 people, but their master is a very strong warrior, one of the 5 rulers and 3 emperors. A great master who has reached the Huanzhen level is known as the Thunder King of Lightning Sword. If the Lord left things as they were, there was a good chance that he would get involved in their affairs, so he had a request for Muqian. They wanted Muqian to deal with him so that everyone in the world would know that they had the power to eliminate one of the 5 rulers and 3 emperors. The gentleman wanted to spare for more men for this mission, but Muqian explained that he could manage alone. That night when Muqian had set out and made a pass in the forest, a group of people looking for some guy decided to approach Muqian to see if he had seen him. The boys apologized to Muqian for treating him with suspicion in the beginning. Muqian, who was very interested in who this guy they were looking for was, and asked for more details about him. The guys told that he is a murderer who massacred and eliminated one very important person, son of the head of one very important organization. And that's why, even after all this time, they're still searching for him. Muqian admitted that with the information the guys have, it's not going to be easy to find out anything about this guy. One of the guys said that he had recently learned a detailed description of him. He was dressed in black clothes and had a sword with a blade of about 70 centimeters. After a moment, the boys did realize that the one they were looking for was sitting right in front of them. The guys were already preparing to attack the guy, but the senior of their team ordered them all to freeze. All this happened so long ago that Muqian had already forgotten about it. He was not interested in the boys and kept them alive. Initially, Muqian wanted to destroy all those who pointed guns at him, but for the offer of a drink, the guy forgave them. The guys realized that the man in front of them was so strong that he would have dealt with them in a second. The team leader wondered how they could have made such a stupid mistake, since they were usually very cautious, and whether the customer had deliberately hidden his strength level. Muqian had no plans to give up, however, he might have given one chance. Muqian explained that he was actually traveling to take part in a duel, and the guys probably know his opponent Thunder King Lightning Sword King. The guys were puzzled that even though Muqian was aware of how strong he was and still seeks to meet him, Muqian will be grateful if the guys guide him to the Thunder King, and if he loses, they can trade him for a reward. The boys agreed to escort Muqian to his place and immediately set off. On the way, Muqian noticed that someone was following them and ordered these people to show themselves. It turned out that the boys were sent with the center to help Muqian in a critical situation. Muqian ordered them to return, but they could not do so because they had been ordered not to leave him. Muqian still allowed the boys to follow him with only one condition: they must not do anything without his permission. The team that was looking for Muqian was surprised at how fast the guys were moving. They were completely incongruous to them. The guys were real pros, and if even they consider him their master, then how strong is he then, thought the guys. Almost reaching the place, the boys stopped and pointed out that the residence of the man Muqian wanted was behind the mountain. The Lightning Sword Thunder King was already aware that he had visitors and ordered his subordinate to go downstairs and invite these people to join him. Upon reaching the house where the Thunder King of Lightning Sword lives, the guys were immediately greeted and invited inside. One of the soldiers wasn't quite sure what his general was even thinking, why he was delaying the battle and why he just went inside without doing anything. The Thunder King of Lightning Sword treated the Muqian boys to tea that he treasures very much. Judging from the way he drinks tea, the guy is a real redneck and it looks like he wasn't taught any manners as a child, Thunderbolt King of Lightning Sword thought. The Thunder King of Lightning Sword said that Muqian was an entertaining person, so you couldn't tell that he had come for the head. The head of the team that was searching for Muqian couldn't believe his eyes. Could it be that the man who looked to be barely 30 was the Thunder King of Lightning Sword? But then he remembered that when reaching Huanzhen, it was possible to practice a technique to preserve youth, and he had already seen it with his own eyes. The guys were not sure that they should continue to be there, because judging by the conversation, and not at all not going to fight. However, if they just leave, not see the money. After dinner was served, the boys decided to eat dinner and take off, for if they refused they would insult the host. The Lightning Sword Thunder King summoned the masters of the Covering clan to listen to their conversation, all they could use later. During the conversation, it turned out that besides martial arts, Muqian studied music and can play the hengam. The Thunder King of Lightning Sword suggested that Muqian play him a little because he was interested in hearing his sound. The guy agreed. Listening to the music of the guy Thunder King of Lightning Sword, I realized that the technique is not even there. However, the way the guy puts his soul into the music is amazing. The Thunder King of the Lightning Sword asked what a sword means to Muqian, and hearing the answer that copper is just a sword, the King of the Lightning Sword laughed and said that he had found a worthy interlocutor. The Lightning Sword Thunder King's son didn't understand what was going on, and who was this man who was talking to his father so casually? Could it be that he too had reached the Huanzhen level? The Thunder King of the Lightning Sword asked the guy what should be on his heart when approaching a favorite cause. Muqian had only two choices of best and no second answer: forget everything. The Thunder King of Lightning Sword was surprised because it was almost impossible for a normal person to accomplish this task, and decided to ask the guy what the first option was. Muqian replied to the Lightning Sword King that it was already a secret of his technique and he couldn't talk about it. The only person Muqian could tell this to is a student, but he plans to perfect his technique until he dies and then just die, so it's unlikely he'll ever have a student. But still, Muqian made an exception for the Thunder King Lightning Sword and said the name of his first variant. Thunder Lightning Sword King, recognizing that this was Mu San Kom Bob's highest sword technique, wanted to take a look at it as well, saying that the Lightning Sword King would see it soon. Muqian was even more intrigued by it. The Lightning Sword Thunder King got tired of stalling and announced that it was time to start the battle. Upon seeing the Thunder King Lightning Sword, Muqian complimented him on his sword, saying that his sword was marvelous and had a sinister energy, which was what was needed for a sword of this level. The Lightning Sword Thunder King called his sword the Greatest King, but in fact he did not accept its true nature from the beginning, but in time he got used to it and gave it that name. Muqian calls his sword Black Soul. Unlike the Greatest King, it's just an ordinary sword, but Muqian has been with it for a long time and it has never let him down. The Thunder King of Lightning Sword turned to his son Chong Yi and said that he was going to start a duel, and if he was killed, he wouldn't even dare to take revenge, because it was just a duel between two strong masters. He also turned to So Jin with the words, if he lost this battle he would like the Greatest King to go to him. His skill is still far from perfect, but his energy and zest for life reminds the Thunderbolt King of his youth, so much so that he decided to give this sword to him. After all the words were said, the Thunderbolt King of Lightning Sword and Muqian started the duel. Muqian first decided to use the Death Hand technique, and after that he decided to use a technique from the 4th chapter of the 3rd paragraph of the book he used to study martial arts called Mangang, and according to Muqian it is very effective in defense. The Lightning Sword Thunder King recognized that the guy's defense was excellent and it would be hard to break through, but for a top-level sword master, it shouldn't be such a difficult task, Muqian thought. The Thunder Lightning Sword King decided to pierce through the guy's defense using the power of the Black Dragon. Muqian thought he wouldn't make a dent in Mangang's technique. Seems like he shouldn't forget who he is and how strong he is. Muqian stopped the Thunder King's Lightning Sword technique with his commanding sword technique, and thus he began to strike him harder and harder. Looking at this, one of the mercenary team realized how lucky they were that Muqian didn't kill them at the same moment, because he has incredible strength. After the Thunderbolt Sword King comprehended the 10 truths of the Streaming Dragon Sword technique, he reached the Huanzhen level, and after that, there was not a single person who was worthy of crossing blades with him. He didn't realize how strong Mu Qian was, but he wanted to show him his flying dragon power. Mu Qian, seeing that Thunder King Lightning King had thrown a sword at him, the guy decided to use the sword lordship energy and strike him with his bare hands. At the last moment, the Thunder King Lightning Sword King managed to dodge. He realized that he had to, was immediately hiding when he heard the name of the technique, because just a little bit more and he would not be there. The Lightning Sword Thunder King thought he knew everyone in Murim, but how come he was now competing for supremacy with this stranger? The battle was gaining serious momentum. Mu Qian had left everyone to the Thunder King Lightning Sword attack, and he had managed to avoid all the fatal wounds. But it didn't matter anymore. Mu Qian really impressed the Lightning Sword Thunder King, and he was confident that he could handle it. The Thunderbolt Lightning Sword King was a little shocked at the fact that Mu Qian didn't dodge his White Dragon reception. Does the guy really want to take all of the White Dragon's power on himself? He thought. The highest sword technique is indeed the highest. This technique, unlike the others, is very difficult to master, but very effective in battle, so the person who wields it is a true master. The Lightning Sword Thunder King didn't even have time to put his sword back into its scabbard. Mu Qian was truly a master. And how come no one knew about him? He has one last technique left, attack with his scabbard. While Mu Qian will stop the greatest king with his sword, he will attack him with his scabbard, deciding to use his latest technique. Black Dragon Force. The Gram Lightning Sword King was badly injured by Mu Qian's Wind of Destruction technique. This technique not only injured the Thunder King Lightning Sword body, but he subsequently lost his stance and lost his defense. In the end, at the end of the battle, the Lightning Sword Thunder King was seriously injured, but even so, he was grateful to Mu Qian that he had appeared in his life, because if it were not for him, your Lightning Sword King would not have been able to fight an opponent of this level. The Lightning Sword Thunder King wanted to know the guy's name, but since Mu Qian didn't want to divulge his real name, he asked to be called Dark Energy Master. The Lightning Sword Thunder King, accepting the fact that the guy didn't want to divulge his real name, he asked at least not to touch his disciples. But Mu Qian had no intention of touching anyone, much less killing them. The Thunder Lightning Sword King ordered his disciples, until they found about 5 masters of his level, to not even think about revenge. The Thunder Lightning Sword King was very much overjoyed that he had gotten the chance to fight a person who had reached the Henjin level, and barely before the Thunderous King of the Lightning Sword retreated into the next world, his disciples pounced on Mu Qian. But the son of the Thunder King of Lightning Sword, Chongyi, stopped them because they promised his father not to take revenge. Mu Qian asked the boys before they attacked. Think again, because they heard the teacher asking them to spare their lives. But despite everything said, the Thunder King Lightning Sword disciples still continued to provoke Mu Qian. Realizing that things were getting hot, Chongyi ordered Seo Jin to quickly retrieve his father's sword and notify everyone of the current situation. Chongyi clearly understood that a person who had reached Henjin's level and was able to straighten out his father to them exactly unevenly, he would kill them in an instant. But despite the guy's efforts to avoid conflict, Mu Qian still destroyed all of the Thunder King Lightning Sword disciples. The guys who were searching for Mu Qian were, to put it mildly, shocked by what was happening. They realized that even if they tried to escape, they would probably die. Through one of the doors to the closet, Mu Qian saw the grandson of the Thunder King Lightning Sword King, who was scared out of his wits. The grandson of the Thunder King of Lightning Sword took his sword in his hands and tried to defend himself and the maid, but the guy calmed them down by saying that he didn't wish them harm and closed the door and left. And those guys who were searching for him, the guy explained that this time they will not get the award, but asked not to get upset because no one knows what will happen tomorrow. When Mu Qian approached the chief of the guys, he asked him to give something to the agency that had promised a reward for him and paid the guys with stones. When such a massacre takes place, everyone is killed so that no one will know anything, and since at least one escaped, there was no point in killing everyone. The chief of the team of guys who were looking for Mu Qian explained to the guys that it was incredible luck to catch such a battle and survive. Meanwhile, Seo Jin reached his destination and announced that their teacher had been killed during the battle. The boy explained to his brother that the man who killed their teacher called himself a Dark Energy Lord and was a great master. The guy also relayed to him that their teacher was very proud that he had the chance to fight a man who had reached the Henjin level and left a will not to avenge his death. The brother asked Seo Jin where his older brother was now, but upon learning that he too had died, the guy was furious. Who the hell was this guy's opponent, and who was he anyway that their father decided to risk his life to fight him? He asked Seo Jin to write down all the things this guy talked about with his father, Meanwhile, Muqian had already returned to the center and was receiving words of appreciation from his host. Muqian shared his impressions that it is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to meet a master of this level. The master laughed and said that if he wished a battle with the strongest, then did Muqian have the strength to overpower him. Muqian was not at all frightened by this suggestion. If the master agrees to fight, he doesn't mind. It was ridiculous that Muqian was willing to fight with just his internal energy alone, without weapons. Although, if he decided to kill one of the three emperors, the self-confidence must be off the charts. The master asked Muqian if he wanted to prove something with this and claimed to be the founder of the cult. Muqian didn't even think about it. He just wanted to continue learning martial arts. The guy wasn't even sure if he could manage a large number of rests. Son of the cult founder a little behind in skill. The boy had reached the level of cult founder at his young age and he couldn't just leave such a strong martial artist behind. Therefore, since Muqian did not claim to be the cult founder, he offered him the post of deputy cult founder. Muqian agreed, but only on the condition that he had more free time. The cult founder explained that he would have plenty of free time. In the first place, the deputy had no direct subordinates other than 5 personal guards. In the second place, meticulous daily chores would not be necessary for him to attend to. Muqian agreed and asked that the guards not be demonic line masters. The cult founder said that the guy would have to make a new sword and it would have to be made of good steel with Jinwanjiga techniques practiced. If the sword is refined with the Jinwanjigi technique, it will only fit its wielder, giving the new deputy solidity. The cult founder asked him if he knew how to play Go. He replied that no, he only played chess. But it seems like in order to find common ground with the cult founder, he probably should have learned how to play it. This guy's a real warrior, think cult founder. He has no ambition, but he's got a lot of guts. He even dared to provoke the cult founder himself. The cult founder thought that he should also learn to play chess, but it would take a very long time. The founder of the cult gave the guy some Go stones and explained that until he beat him at Go, he shouldn't even offer to play chess. Muqian is now the deputy founder of the cult. But the guy still thought it was a completely worthless position. The house where Muqian was very similar to the one he lived in when he was in Luoyang. Suddenly, he wondered how Seo Hyun was doing. Suddenly, his mentor Yo Baek came up to Muqian from behind and stated that the guy had become unrecognizable. It had been a long time since they had seen each other, and how quickly time flies. Muqian has even become the deputy founder of the cult. Muqian's mentor, Yo Baek, suggested that he go and have a drink somewhere, and he agreed. Meanwhile, while the guys were drinking, the cult founder sent the guy those very promised guards. After finding the guy, the guards first of all apologized for disturbing the esteemed deputy founder of the cult. After getting to know each other, the boys explained that they were very happy to serve their deputy cult founder faithfully. Muqian didn't expect them to be his personal guards at all, and none of them seemed to have changed particularly, the guy thought. One explained that it was all due to being able to control their inner strength, which was why they looked young. Since there were 4 of them, Muqian was to name the team of boys the 4 warriors and asked them to choose one nickname each from those named Plum, Orchid, Chrysanthemum, and Bamboo. Wanan chose Orchid, Marsik chose Bamboo, Chun Chun chose Plum, and Huangsu got the nickname Chrysanthemum. The guys were now Muqian's personal guards, and henceforth he would call them by nicknames. In addition, the guy would teach them martial arts, and the boys had to try to grow in skill quickly so that they could perform difficult tasks in the future. One of the masters had heard that the cult's founder had acquired a good pawn in the person of his deputy. The founder of the cult created a rule for his subordinates: do not approach him with a sword. They made an exception for this guy, because it's not necessary with him. Muqian had knocked the cult founder dead with his courage, and this was clearly a good acquisition for the cult founder. The master stated that no matter how good a horse is, if it does not obey its master, what good will it be? The founder preferred to play Go over chess. In Go, the longer the game goes on, the more pawns become, and they are linked together like in the martial arts world. Most importantly, the cult founder loved Go for the fact that in chess you can rearrange the pawns, but in Go, where you put them, there they will lie. Meanwhile, while the cult founder was playing Go with his friend, Muqian was training his guards. With one training session, Muqian realized what each of them were and what they were capable of. Plum's skill was at a high level, especially his sword skills. Barbuk, though he felt bad for dropping the sword, was the strongest of the 4. Orchid was good at mixing martial arts and poison dagger throwing, and Chrysanthemum was an expert compared to ordinary assassins, but they were too weak to be called a squad of personal guards. Perhaps Muqian had sent them because he had requested that the guards not emanate strong demonic energy and had not set a skill requirement. Muqian ordered the boys that from tomorrow morning each of them should visit him in turn. He will give half an hour of his time to each of them. Although the demon cult's library was full of books, they had no value. They looked different from each other, but in essence, they all said the same thing. Muqian decided to read the books of the blood cult, but even they yielded nothing, as all the techniques were based on sorcery. If the opponent is good at martial arts, these techniques don't work. Muqian didn't know how he could continue to train further, as he had already surpassed them in demon cult skill, and the tasks they called cruel trials were nothing more than child's play for him. Meanwhile, Chrysanthemum came to practice. He noticed that something was bothering Muqian. Muqian asked what Chrysanthemum thinks can be overwhelming for a person. Chrysanthemum pondered and offered the option of climbing the peak of Mount Simanderson's Mason Peak or smashing a big rock, but that's all mere trifles to a guy. Off to the side and their location is a pine forest. Chrysanthemum suggested counting all the needles of these pine trees. It is said that this method was used in Shaolin to punish a disobedient monk. They say there was a pine forest where a very strong wind blew twice a day, and they were given a decree to combine all the needles on 1,000 trees. In the forest, which is not far from the location of the guys, the wind does not blow, but there are 3,000 pine trees. Therefore, Chrysanthemum thought that this was a fair task, which would be impossible for an ordinary person. Muqiano wondered what had happened to that monk. Chrysanthemum explained that it was said that he had never been able to leave that forest and had died there of old age. So this task is really impossible for an ordinary person, and it's worth a try, Muqian thought. Upon reaching the forest, Muqian realized that these trees were bigger than he had imagined, but still the guy started his business. After losing count, the guy realized that it turns out you need a good memory and good martial arts skills to do it all. If Muqian steps inadvertently in the wrong place, the needles may fall and their quantitative branches may change, then you have to count again. As he soared above the forest, Muqian saw the vastness of the forest and seemed to understand why the Shaolin monk could not finish counting until his death. Maybe it is in the forest that the limit of martial art skill lies, he thought. Chrysanthemum reported to the cult's deputy founder Muqian that a blacksmith wanted to meet with him. On reaching the blacksmith, Muqian noticed that the blacksmith could not raise his head in shame. In the blacksmith's opinion, he had failed to satisfy the deputy founder of the cult. The blacksmith wanted to make a good sword as requested, but it seemed that what he had made was no good at all and he would need to make another one. So he asked for the opportunity to resample his energy from the deputy. Muqian ordered the blacksmith to give him this sword if it was already made, for it did not matter to him whether it was good or not. Looking at the sword, Muqian asked the blacksmith what exactly he didn't like, for the sword was magnificent. The blacksmith explained to the boy that the energy of evil and good had become mixed, and the sword had become incomprehensible. It would be difficult to achieve the highest skill of a demonic cult with such a sword. Muqian decided to try out the sword, and by using the Jin Pakanwol technique, he proved that this sword is good. The blacksmith couldn't believe his eyes. After all, the energies of evil and good must be at enmity with each other and prevent the wielder from wielding the sword. The blacksmith admitted his mistake and explained that Muqian possesses both evil and good energy at the same time. Therefore, the sword he made shone with the energy of evil and good at the same time. The sword could only be wielded by Muqian and no one else. Muqian liked the sword and took it. The blacksmith also handed the boy a dagger that came with the sword. The name of this dagger is Mukenbi. The new Muqian with Mukenbi thanked the blacksmith for his work and headed home. Upon reaching the house, Muqian noticed 3 energies. They looked like they belonged to good craftsmen. Judging from their energy, they were not from the demonic cult headquarters. But who dared to break into the demonic cult headquarters? Muqian thought. Muqian decided to play along with the people who were waiting in the guy's house. Upon entering the house, a sword was immediately presented to the throat of the boy. The people who sneaked into the guy's house told him to be quiet and promised that they wouldn't hurt him. They also borrowed the guy's sword. Muqian noticed that all 3 guys were injured by the demonic cult technique, meaning that they were escaped from the demonic cult state. They wanted the guy to point them in the direction they needed to go to get outside the demonic cult's territory. Muqian explained to them that to reach the back of the demonic cult's territory, they would have to walk another 20 kilometers. The guys wondered who he was, what he was, and how he ended up there. Muqian told them that he was a disciple of a little-known clan that had been expelled after losing a power struggle to the demonic cult, and was currently studying martial arts on his own so that he could return to the demonic cult later. One of the guys thought it was strange, because Muqian didn't have the specific energy of the demonic cult masters. From his appearance, he seemed to be telling the truth. They asked Muqian to guide them outside the demonic cult territory. Muqian explained that it was fatal for him and asked for a reward. Muqian offered to help the boys, as he was previously trained as a healer and could treat their wounds. The guys could not refuse this help and asked the guy first of all to help to watch their student, because among them she has the hardest time. The wound on the girl's body was from using the soft demon fist technique, but thanks to her mastery of Henman, it was not fatal. Muqian was very familiar with this girl's face, but there were no people among his acquaintances who had studied the technique of controlling Henman's internal energy. The guys were very grateful to the guy for treating their wounds, also thanked for Seo who was unconscious. Muqian took a special look at the men's bodies, but they, unlike the girl, had not studied Henman's technique. Muqian wondered that if they were from the same clan, why they had different internal energies. Suddenly, Orchid knocked on the door. Opening the door, Muqian asked her to buy him rice and vegetables, painkillers, and Narenma Sokwon too. Orchid noticed that the cult founder had escaped from prison next to him and asked him if everything was all right. Muqian asked Orchid who they were. She replied that they were disciples of the Gate to Heaven clan from Luoyang County. The headquarters of their clan and the headquarters of the demonic cult jointly imprisoned 200 disciples. Among them, some escaped and fell in with them. Everyone in the demonic cult knew about the guys being there, and the founder of the cult knew too. Muqian realized that even if the founder knew about it, we should end it quickly, but he was alarmed by that girl. Muqian decided to ask Orchid if the Gate to the Sky clan was teaching its students techniques for controlling Henman's internal energy. Orchid replied that she didn't, though she might not know. Martial arts are based on sword control techniques, so you can think of them as two opposite martial arts. Managing the internal energy of the traditional Henman clan from Luoyang County, a girl surnamed So. Muqian seemed to realize who the girl was and asked Orchid to tell the cult founder that he would deal with them himself. If this girl is really the one he thought she was, the guy couldn't leave her in the lurch. Muqian showed the boys which road to take and explained that they would be safe in a couple of days. The guys, after giving the guy his sword, noticed that his energy had changed a lot and thought it was an ambush. Muqian reassured them, telling them not to worry, and since he had little time to prepare a good gift, he handed the girl a box and the boys were handed silver coins for the road. They wondered why Muqian was giving it, but he reminded them that he had promised it to her and said it was good to see her, after which he disappeared. Opening that box the guy gave her, the girl saw earrings and a pendant in there. I think she realized who the guy was. When the girl was a little girl, walking down the street, she saw very beautiful jewelry and asked Muqian to buy it for her. However, he replied that it was too young for her to wear it. Hearing this, the girl got upset and asked the guy when she would be able to wear them. Muqian, stroking her head, said that when she grew up, then he would buy her much prettier ones. This girl turned out to be Muqian's adopted daughter. He had no idea that she had joined the gateway to the Sky clan. Muqian admitted that he wouldn't want her to have anything to do with martial arts. Upon reaching back, the guys were told that the cult founder was calling them to his place. Upon reaching the cult founder's house, Muqian felt a frenzied aura. It seemed that he was accompanied by other martial artists from the demonic cult. Muqian was right. The Azure Poison Emperor, the deputy founder of the cult, Neng Bin Yu, the three-headed demon, Elder So Mu Yun, and the purple-smiling Elder Hian Mo Sang were all gathered there. A little later, the guy noticed that Lone Wanderer Iron Ruler Zhong Long and Demon Check Flute player Han Chun Long, the Great Dark Demon Emperor, the founder of the Han Chun Gale Demon cult, waited for Muqian to say something in his defense. Muqian explained that he had his reasons, but maybe the Great Emperor had something else in store for him. If the reason was only because the guy didn't have the right to do it on his own, then he wanted to ask him something. Guy asked the Great Emperor if he had thought of freeing the captives of the Divine Earth cult and try to negotiate peacefully with her. Han Chun Gil replied that even though the Divine Earth cult had 2,000 well-trained novices who could completely annihilate them by simply dispatching a few of their martial artists, they shouldn't bother to negotiate. Muqian explained that his adopted daughter was involved with the cult. Han Chun Gil was shocked by this response, but first of all, the guy should have informed him before making decisions on his own. In any case, Muqian is talking about a lowly girl he met during those 3 years in the Nanyang region, so why would a guy, squinting about her not only because he didn't pass on his knowledge of martial arts to her, but it's been over a decade since he left her. Not to mention the fact that they are not blood relatives, her life should be of no more concern to you than that of a personal beggar, Han Chungil explained. Han Chungil asked the guy once again if he still wasn't going to obey them. Mukyan has of course apologized to them, but since this girl is still his adopted daughter, he cannot kneel. Han Chungil waved his hand and said that the guy could do whatever he had in mind, because there seemed to be no way he could fix his stubbornness. Han Chungil asked Elder Hian Mo Sang to inform everyone of the details of this matter, which was finished and everyone could already go, and he asked the deputy cult leader Neng Bin Yu to stay behind. Han Chungil couldn't even think that the guy had such a strong sense of justice. He had hoped that the guy would become an obedient fulfillment, but it seemed like it wasn't meant to be. He explained to Mukyan that if the guy didn't want to be a goofy servant, he advised that he should make every effort to handle the matter himself. Mukyan ordered one of his guards to go to Nanyang as soon as possible and do everything possible to protect his adopted daughter. Everyone else was asked by the guy to find out everything they could about the people associated with the Divine Earth cult, and the sooner the better. Mukyan was going to go to Nanyang for a month and he hoped the boys would try to manage in that time. This man is the founder of the Divine Earth cult Sword of Mighty Power Jin Yang. He is under 2 meters tall and has a muscular body, a build. He can be considered an honorable martial arts warrior, for he has never broken a promise, and he also hates the demonic cult. His father died in a battle with a martial arts master from a demonic cult. It was known that when the Justice faction had expelled the founder of the Yangchun cult, Yang Tam had led 200 martial artists with him. Mukyan hoped that Hyang Mo Sang's information was correct, and if it turned out not to be, he himself offered to destroy him. Suddenly, Mukyan remembered his mentor who had said that trying to instill fear in those who preferred the use of brains to brute force would make them less likely to fall prey to their wiles. Mukyan asked Hian Mo Sang what he thinks about the peace agreement with cult founder Jin Yang. The guy replied that what they were hoping for would not be easy to accomplish since it was a Divine Land cult, and if the Justice faction decided to attack the demonic cultists, the Divine Land cultists would have no choice but to submit to them. Mukyang hoped that Hyang Mo Sang would put his skills to good use in preparing to negotiate with them. 10 days later, the guy sent 20 more martial artists to the Nanyang region, and on the way there Sol Yakbek Beauty of Sound taught Mukyan how to play the zither. This nickname was given to her because she used Wii as a sound to doom her enemies to die in bliss. However, this nickname also became synonymous with voluptuous beauty, as she did not deny herself sexual pleasures. There were 20 people under her command, including bodyguards. These people were martial arts veterans, so their journey to the Divine Land cult was much faster than expected. Thanks to all this, the boys' journey to the Nanyang region took only 20 days. Jin Young was known for keeping his word. He is someone who will never back down from a good deed, unless you count an unstoppable libido. He doesn't seem to be a bad person. Sol Yakbek asked Mukyan if it is true that he plans to conclude a peace agreement with these people, and he replied in short and clear yes if everything goes as planned. Mukyan wondered how Soan's mother was doing, since she now lived in a small house near the Divine Earth cult. Jin Young-ho wanted to take her in because she was quiet and made a good impression on those around her, but apparently she rejected not only that offer, but also his marriage proposal. Mukyan thought it was foolish of her, for she could have remarried and lived without a care. Suddenly Mukyan heard a voice. Turning around, he saw a boy who spoke like a commoner and was well dressed. Although his wooden sword is just a toy, but made very skillfully, it looks like he is the son of a noble member of the Divine Land cult. Mukyan noticed that the boy was being defiant and explained that he had been sent to the Divine Land cult to capture him. So what is that if not luck, he said. The boy was happy that he had succeeded in overpowering Mukyan, but the latter had hit his vital points and now he would not be able to move. So unfairly shouted the boy, for he had stabbed him first, but Mukyan explained to him that there was no room for honesty in battle. Mukyan pressed the boy's vital points just because he wanted to eat, so he advised him not to resist and just enjoy his meal, because he could handle 100 like this boy and there wouldn't be a scratch on him. The boy stated that he didn't want to eat the guy's food, to which he replied that he could always shove it down his throat. After all he had heard, the boy ate everything on his plate in one, couldn't even look at it. Mukyan thanked the boy for making him laugh and let him go home. The boys reached the Divine Earth cult, and when they saw the sentinel there, they asked them to go get the cult's founder. The guys from the watch didn't understand at all how they hadn't noticed these guys, since they had come on horseback. They decided that they should inform the founder as soon as possible. There was no need for that anymore, as the cult founder, Wei Jinyang, was already standing behind the guys. The founder of the cult was well aware of the arrival of the guys due to the disgusting aura that emanated from the guys. He explained to the guys that he didn't want to deal with shameless bastards like them and kicked them out. So the founder of the cult doesn't care at all about his novices who are now being held hostage, the guys thought. Jin Young assumed that a demonic cult was trying to threaten them and explained that they had nothing more to discuss with a brat like them. Sol Jack Beck insisted that the cult founder at least listen to what they had to say. Sol Jack Beck explained that the guys from the demonic cult had come to hold peace talks with the Divine Earth cult and it would be best if he listened to them before making any decisions. The cult's engine realized that he really didn't seem to have a choice anymore, but asked only representatives to come inside for negotiations. Justice Faction cult leader Yang Chunyang was aware that he had to attend this meeting for the sake of formality, but it was already beyond their responsibility. The old man who had a dark blue aura around his hands was most likely a demon emanating the blood of Oak Guan Pai, the one who occupies the 13th rank in the demonic console, thought the cult leader. And this woman is as beautiful as jade is the beauty of the sound of Sol Yak Bek. The cult leader explained that these two would be enough to destroy them, so why did they come to negotiate? Cult was a little embarrassed that someone as majestic as these guys were in an unassuming place like this. The man explained that if there was a person in the area who held a higher position than him, the man thought why not go with him. Muqian didn't feel any demonic chi emanating from this man and thought he was a new martial artist they hadn't heard of. Sol Jack Beck explained to the cult leader that they were here to negotiate with him and held out the terms, asking him to familiarize himself with them. The cult leader asked Jin Young not to let himself be fooled, for he was sure they were going to use coup tactics to capture them. This matter only concerned the demonic cult and the Divine Earth cult, so the founder of the Jin Young cult should make the decision on his own, and no one should interfere with it. If Jin Young agrees to the guy's terms, they promise to return the prisoners to them safely. The terms were that the demon cult and the Divine Earth cult would establish a non-hostile relationship. In case the Divine Earth cult decided to invade the demon cult's land, neither side would express their displeasure. In the event that a Divine Earth cult decides to attack a demonic cult due to unavoidable circumstances, the Divine Earth is required to notify the demonic cult of its plans 1 month prior to the attack. However, in the event that the Divine Earth cult joins forces with the Justice Faction to attack the demon cult, and the Divine Earth cult may not notify the demon cult of the attack. In this case, the demonic cult may attack any martial artists. Before he could even read the damn condition, the cult founder didn't even know what to say. Even though the demonic cult trusts them, Jin Young subordinates are causing problems. That's why they came to make sure these negotiations will be transparent to them. They might as well not talk about it. After all, the Divine Earth cult was the first to attack their secret base. They attacked because they thought their secret base was a haven for mountain bandits rampaging through their lands, and of all the novices sent there, only 3 returned, but thanks to them they found out that the attack on the place was part of a demonic cult. The demonic cult did not wish to antagonize the Divine Ground cult, but if they rejected their offer, the demonic cult would have no choice but to completely destroy the Divine Ground cult. Muqian promises to maintain the demonic cult's position on the issue of returning the novices safely. No matter what, the cult founder accepted the conditions of who this guy thought. The cult founder wondered if he was a martial artist ranked high in the devil cult. The guys congratulated the deputy founder of the cult on the successful negotiations, because it was a wise decision to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. The founder of the cult was shocked that the guy was the deputy founder of the demonic cult. After all, to think that a man capable of killing thousands of martial artists had come to them personally. Suddenly, Muqian noticed that the same little boy was hiding from behind the bushes. This little boy wasn't going to let this guy fool him again. Cult founder Jin Young was shocked that his grandson was there. The little boy was sure the guy would be in trouble, as his grandfather could easily kill people like him. The oil cult founder did not understand at all where his grandson's manners were. The founder became nervous and asked his grandson In Suk to shut up. Muqian grabbed the boy and ordered him to tell his grandfather that he didn't want to say such a thing and he will let him go. The boy didn't want to say it, so the guy has no choice but to make him scream in pain. The cult founder was very angry because this boy was his grandson. How could Muqian do that to him? How could Muqian do that to a little boy, because they had just finished negotiating? It's ridiculous. An old man won't stand by. How can he be called the founder of a cult if he can't even protect his grandson? How long is he going to mock him? It's been going on for half an hour. The boy was holding up well. The guy would channel his inner ki to keep his meditation going. The cult founder was puzzled. He had no idea the guy hadn't even tormented him. The boy has just mastered the free spirit cultivation technique. It will keep him safe from any spoilage, the ability to taint his mind. The technique will not only allow him to accumulate a lot of inner strength, it will also give him more opportunities before the boy takes his first step into his spiritual realm. The cult founder still didn't understand exactly what the guy had done to his grandson, but the girl explained that the cult's deputy founder called the performer a technique of altering bones and muscles to make his grandson's body more suitable for becoming a martial artist. This process involves incredible pain that not every adult can endure, but if another force or shock had disrupted the change processes, his entire body could have been irrevocably destroyed. So the girl had to stop the cult founder, otherwise the boy could have been killed. The cult founder may consider it a gift in honor of the successful negotiations between him and the boy. Mukian told the boy that he hoped the next time he met him he would impress him with his skills. The deputy founder of the cult gave the grandson of the cult founder a great honor. Even in a demonic cult, few children get the opportunity to receive such a blessing. The girl sincerely congratulated the founder of the cult on their success, as she promised they had returned the Divine Land cult novices safe and sound. The cult's founder knew that the beauty of the sound was known for corrupt character and lewd behavior, but he was surprised at how true these rumors were. The guy let his companions go and sent to the demonic cult, wishing to be left alone. The girl asked where the guy was going to go, because the founder of the cult said to come back immediately and report to him. Well, the guy's got some other illegal business. The guy let the plum and chrysanthemum go and told them to go to the main base without him. And Mr. Ogwanpai the guy asked to let him use Solyak Bayak's help a little more. The guy needed company for the trip and he also wanted to finish their lessons on the zither. The guy told to tell the cult founder that he would be back as soon as he finished his business. The girl asked Mukian what else he had left to do, to which the guy replied that there were only a couple of trifles left. Mukian is going to collect the debts owed to him from the Mount Mu cult and the Celestial Sun cult. They had announced a bounty on Mukian's head. Under normal circumstances he wouldn't have been too worried about it, but how dare they announce a bounty of a measly 40 silver coins? The girl asked the guy in bewilderment if it wasn't better to go with their main forces and destroy these clans, to which the guy replied that there was no need. Mukian alone will be more than enough to deal with these clans. The guy very quickly burst through the doors of the founder of the cult of Mount Mu, so fast that the doors exploded. Mukian said that he had come to collect what was owed to him by the founder of the Mount Mu cult, but the founder of the Mu Mountain cult didn't understand who this person was and why he was looking for him. Mukian asked him if he had not announced a bounty on his head because he wanted to see him. Mukian informed the founder of the Mu Mountain cult that he was the one who had killed the 5 warriors of the Mu Mountain cult a few years ago, and the one who had defeated the Divine Thunder Sword Emperor. The deputy founder of the Golden Dragon cult abruptly lunged towards the guy. How dare he raise his sword at the cult founder? But the guy easily repelled the attack of the deputy founder of the Golden Dragon cult. Besides, the guy doesn't want to become an enemy of the Golden Dragon cult. The deputy founder of the Golden Dragon cult thought the guy was an arrogant bastard and launched a slashing moonblade attack. But Mukian's forces were largely superior to the deputy founder of the Golden Dragon cult, and the latter was defeated. At this moment, the founder of the Mu Mountain cult realized that the guy was above the boundless realm. It seemed to be useless to resist him. The founder of the Mu Mountain cult ordered the deputy founder of the Golden Dragon cult to leave. Everyone must leave. Mukian assumed that the founder of the Mu Mountain cult had decided to fight him, but why didn't he draw his sword? But the wise founder of the Mu Mountain cult said that if the Sword Emperor couldn't defeat the guy, then what are his chances? The cult founder informed everyone that he was declaring Peng Jin as his successor. They should never take revenge on this person. Sure enough, they all knew very well what happened to the Heavenly Thunder Sword Emperor's novices. The founder of the cult has only asked the guy for one thing, that he can take his life, but he asks that he not harm his novices. Mukian said it's not easy to kill someone who behaves like this. Since the guy had made his intentions clear to them, now he must go to the Celestial Sun cult. The founder of the Mu Mountain cult will stay alive. The founder of the Mount Mu cult apologized on behalf of the Celestial Sun cult and asked the guy if he could just leave them alone. But the guy replied that if the cult founder was willing to go so far to protect them, then he thought his business here was over. The founder of the Mu Mountain cult couldn't believe his eyes. They had actually experienced it. People might consider him unlucky, but this was the first time he had ever seen someone use a sword order with his own eyes. And he was sure that this person would go down in history as the second martial master who had reached the bottomless realm in the Murim world. Mukian released the 3 novices of all who divine lands without the permission of the cult founder. Had this performance in the cult of Mu Mountain, and as punishment he got put on probation. For this reason the lad spent this time honoring the needles in the pine forest, and finally the needles of 3,000 pines were counted all to 1. Mukian asked the cult founder to let him look at the divine knowledge of the northern heavens, but the divine knowledge of the northern heavens is only allowed to be seen by the cult founder, and the guy's skills aren't enough for that. The cult founder told the guy that he's pretty serious without this martial art, so why does he insist on learning it? But the guy informed him that he is a martial arts master isn't the reason obvious, a bottomless demonic realm. The guy wants to overcome this realm and get closer to what is truly the pinnacle of martial arts. The cult founder said that he understood his point of view, however he is still on probation, not to mention that there is a rule in this place that as a cult founder, he has to abide by. The cult founder forbade the guy from seeing the divine knowledge of the northern heavens unless he killed the cult founder or stepped into his shoes himself. The cult founder thought what an impatient bastard this guy was. He was sure if he let his guard down for even half a second, the guy would attack him immediately. The cult founder asked Muqian if he really wanted to risk everything to achieve something related to martial arts. The founder of the cult has decided to grant the guy special permission, but the guy is only supposed to see him in their training room, and he is not allowed to share this knowledge with anyone. The guy thanked the cult founder for his generosity, and in due course he set the guy up with a meeting at the gazebo the next day. They had much to discuss. The next day, the guy had already familiarized himself with the divine knowledge of the northern heavens. It was good that Mr. Yu Beck had told him to learn the Bohai language, a compendium of martial arts, written by the first martial artist to reach the bottomless realm in the Justice faction. Muqian had heard that these teachings were difficult to understand, as they were originally based more on the spiritual side of martial arts than on the techniques themselves. However, since the guy has reached the same spiritual realm as he has, and he wonders if there is any guidance in these teachings on how to reach the realm of life and death, and if Muqian applies all the knowledge he has, in addition to the teachings of the divine knowledge of the northern heavens, he is confident that he can achieve this goal. The cult founder was waiting for Muqian in the gazebo. When the guy finally arrived, the cult founder had errands for him. It seems their main branch is having problems with the Tang family in Sichuan province. What started as a small dispute soon turned violent. As long as the Tang family is one of the 5 great families, the confrontation between the two factions will soon reach a boiling point. The 5 great families have the support of the 9 great consoles as well as the Murim alliance. If their cultists aren't careful, things could end in war. Muqian has successfully negotiated with the Divine Earth cult. He thinks he can succeed here too, but the guy is still on probation. The cult founder told him to just forget about it. Besides, he's been taking advantage of his special orders all this time, so it's not like the guy is refusing to help the cult founder. But isn't there anyone better suited for the job? Elder Hyang Mo Sang, for example. But the cult founder informed the guy that there was no one more suited for the job than him if he couldn't make an agreement with them. The cult founder wanted the guy to deal with their leaders as soon as possible. Now Muqian began to understand why the cult founder was sending him specifically. The cult founder thanked the guy and gave him the demon tearing squad. He would be at the guy's complete disposal. Muqian sent for nobles to the Tang family of Sichuan to gather information about them. The Eastern Thunder Squad will remain on standby with the Tearing Demon Squad at their secret base until further notice. Now that the guy's gotten rid of everybody, why not spend some time with his favorite guy? The guy thought. On the way to the mission, the guy was looking for an inn because he would need to eat before he started. As soon as Muqian entered the first inn he found, he was told from the doorstep that there were no vacant seats, although there were many vacant seats in the inn. The guy objected that there were no vacant seats because there were plenty of them. He just wanted to eat and leave. But then from nowhere a huge bogey appeared in front of them and said that the guy was a bastard and seemed to think a lot of himself, walking around with a sword. If he didn't want the bones to be broken by the bogey, he'd better get the hell out of here. But the guy didn't want to leave the inn because he just wanted to eat, but Bugay tried to hit him. A friend amidst this crowd cut through the sweet voice of the red-haired lady, who ordered the guy to be captured. Could it be that these thugs were run by such a young lady? Why wouldn't the guy have fun? He walked behind the young lady's back with sharp movements, putting a knife to his throat, telling her that he really doesn't understand why people don't listen to him when he speaks politely. The girl really liked the young man's impressive knife. The guy calls it Muqian. It's quite a decent knife, though the guy mostly doesn't use it for cooking. The young lady asked the guy if he really thought he would stay alive after such a thing. The young lady asked the guy if he really thought he would stay alive after such a thing, to which the guy objected that she would send some killers after him, to which the girl replied that the guy seemed to be well aware of the consequences. Quietly the guy said, covering the girl's mouth with his hand, if everything in this world was as simple as the young lady thought, the guy wouldn't let her swallow the pill. The young lady did not realize what Muqian had given her to swallow. She jumped up abruptly and asked him about it. Muqian said it was an aphrodisiac known as the pill of blooming pleasure. He can be resisted, but it's very challenging, so Muqian advises to just pick a decent guy to enjoy the evening. By the time the girl's feelings return to her, Muqian will be very far away from here. and for security reasons, Muqian decided to take one of the girls hostage with him. If the young lady gives chase, the guy will destroy the meridians of this girl and throw her into a den of beggars. Running away from the inn, the guy wanted to know the name of the girl he had kidnapped. But it was not clear to her why he wanted to know her name, why he was interested in her name. Then the boy threatened that he would give the girl the same pill as he had given the young lady, the innkeeper, and the girl immediately gave her name. Her name was Oka Ryan. Then the guy said that this girl is not like her older sister at all. It seems her sister Oka MANHUA has a spoiled character. But the girl contradicted the guy by saying that's not true. She just looks down on people because she's good with a sword, but even so, she's not a bad person. Her sister is very strong, she hasn't lost a single fight and has defeated all the suitors who wanted to marry her. Muqian said they were trying to be gentle with her, reluctant to marry her. If the terms of the fight had required one to put their life on the line, I'm sure it would have come back differently. It wasn't like her older sister was good at martial arts. The guy asked Oka Ryan how old she was, but to which the girl replied that she was 25 and her sister 38. Muqian notes that although he and the girl are barely acquainted, he finds it easy to talk to her. If the girl promises not to try to run away, he would like the girl to travel with him. Oka Ryan replied to Muqian that he kidnapped her, now asking for her opinion. Anyway, she doubts she will be able to escape. If only because he is a martial arts master. The guy tells the girl that they're going to his friend's house, and although he doesn't want to go there, he needs Oka Ryan's help because his friend comes from a rich family and he seems to have problems with the other rich neighbors. They even had a battle recently. It all started with his servants bickering with the servants of another family, but now it's gotten to the point where martial arts masters are involved. That's why his friend asked Muqian to go and mediate between the parties. If you could do what the guy wants, he'd just kidnap the enemy's family to deal with the problem quickly, but that would only make things worse. The girl was understanding and said that if that was the case, why didn't the guy try to offer some kind of compensation to both families to reconcile them? Muqian replied that the idea was certainly not a bad one, but the fact was that he was not very good at making concessions with other people, not to mention it was terribly annoying. But Muqian had another plan. Why don't the girl talk instead of him? And not only because she speaks more politely than he himself, but also because the girl as a non-interested party will be able to negotiate in an unbiased manner. Oka Ryan objected because, as the guy pointed out, she's not an interested party. She doubts they'll be happy to see her. Muqian said she can introduce herself as his representative, and if they don't like something he can always give them a good thrashing. The girl agreed to the guy's terms, but also put forward her own terms, as it is rare to meet a martial arts master like the guy can teach Muqian her martial arts. Muqian refused the girl and said he didn't want to, but the girl immediately reminded him that he was the one who wanted her to travel with him, so he should at least respect her wishes. Not to mention that since she listened to Muqian's request, he should return the favor. Muqian agreed to the girl's terms but asked her to teach him her martial art. Oka Ryan showed Muqian her Sunset Sun Power technique, Sunset Sun Shimmering Sky technique, and Sunset Sun Quiet Retreat technique. Muqian praised Oka Ryan's technique, saying that it has a graceful style created specifically to dance with a sword. Not only is it soft graceful, but it also exposes sharp spikes. However, this is not the willow dance at sunset that he knows. It's like someone stole it and changed it. The girl then said that Muqian is talking complete nonsense and her grandfather himself created this style after becoming enlightened in sword wielding. But Muqian decided to show the girl what the original version of this style looked like. The girl couldn't believe her eyes. Though his inner ki is much bigger than hers, couldn't the guy repeat these moves after seeing them just once? Muqian showed a really great sword-wielding style, but there are only 144 movements in it, while her style has 432. Even considering only these numbers, the guy must agree that her style is stronger. It is common knowledge that a thin branch with many leaves will not bear as much fruit as a thick branch with fewer leaves. This means that the power of a martial art does not depend on how many movements it has. Oka Ryan believed the guy, but he made a promise to never, ever tell anyone the truth about this style of sword wielding, and then he would teach her everything, which the girl gladly agreed to. Then Muqian said that it was time for them to go to Sichuan province, after which the girl realized that Muqian had something to do with the Murim alliance, and he had implicated her. When the boys had already reached the place and the hidden spider squad was waiting for them there, the girl was puzzled whether they were not now at enmity with the great Tang family of Sichuan. Already sitting at ease at the table, the girl tried to get to the truth. She could not believe that the guy is the deputy founder of the demonic cult with which her alliance is feuding. Perhaps the guy kidnapped her just because he knew she was the granddaughter of the leader of the Murim alliance. Although the guy suspected that she was a martial artist from the Justice faction, he didn't go into details. And since his faction and the Murim alliance saw things the same way, he hoped he could come to an agreement with each other, or else he intended to use the demon-tearing squad to kill them all. Oka Ryan explained to the boy that her grandfather had told her how the demonic cult had formed 5 mighty armies of martial artists, but everyone said that the demon blood sword and demon-tearing sword units had never appeared in the Murim world before. The guy replied that just a few people know about their existence, and all because those who could tell about them were killed. If they could not reach an agreement, then the guy will behead all those who participated in the negotiations and order the Aura Demon Assassination Squad to kill all the witnesses. The girl wouldn't want her men to be killed, so she will do her best to ensure they meet peacefully. On the day when the meeting between the alliances took place, Mukyan met a red-haired young lady who used to give aphrodisiac. Who would have thought that they would meet again after a long time? Young lady saw Mukyan and became furious. Because of him she had to eat 3 different pills to stop the effects of aphrodisiacs, but then it turned out that that thing was not even aphrodisiacs. How dare he joke with her like that? She swore to the heavens that she would tear him to pieces. Mukyan angrily told Oka Ryan to probably forget about negotiating. It would be easier to just kill every single person here. But the girl stopped the enraged Mukyan. After all, they had come here for peace talks. He himself had asked to take up the matter instead of him, so the girl asked to give her a chance to do so. Once everyone was seated at the table, the alliance sides introduced themselves to each other and began negotiations. Since it was a girl who negotiated, she explained that the demonic cult knew that this conflict had reached a stalemate. Since the pride of the Great Tang family was not inferior to that of the Hidden Spider Squad, they should sit down at the negotiating table and resolve the conflict with an agreement. The representative of the Tang family put forward their refusal to resolve this conflict, explaining that they now had 40 martial artists from the Murim alliance, as well as 100 martial artists from the main family of these places, and 3 cults were also willing to assist them in this matter. Then Mukyan asked to name these 3 cults, so that he would not allow them to enter this conflict on one side or the other. Oka Ryan explained that the cult's deputy founder Mukyan had arrived with a squad of Azura demon assassins, but the demon cult doesn't want war. Therefore, if they didn't solve anything by the end of the day, the demon cult ordered Azura's demon assassination squad to kill anyone who got in their way. If those at the table do not reach an agreement, the first thing the deputy cult founder Mukyan is ordered to do is to kill everyone currently at the table, then kill all the cult heads involved in the conflict. The red-haired young lady called it stupid. If they really planned to do that, then they shouldn't have said anything about it. They don't seem to understand who Mukyan is. In a demonic cult, there is a rule that you cannot approach the cult founder with a weapon within 10 meters. However, Mukyan is the only exception to this rule, so they are well aware that if he really wants to kill someone, they have no chance of stopping the guy. Mukyan gave an ultimatum: either the supporters go for a truce or accept death by his blade. The head of the Tan family reminded Mukyan that he had spoken how he was not going to bully them, but then what is happening now? Mukyan apologized. Not to be considered rude, he actually speaks in a very respectful manner. Mukyan offered to return the 3 martial art scrolls that the ghost cult had taken from them, and he would also give them 2,000 silver coins, half of which they should give to the Hidden Spider Squad as reparations. Oka Ryan warned Mukyan that if the Tan family from the planets this proposal and he wants to slaughter everyone, then she will not stand by. She will help her sister to defeat Mukyan. Mukyan handed his sword to Oka Ryan and replied that if the girl was going to use the sword-wielding style he taught her, she would need a sword. If a battle was going to start, he wanted everyone to have an equal chance. But at that moment, the supporters of the talks called out deputy cult founder Mukyan and said that they had made a decision. Mukyan was eager to hear the response of the alliance supporters. He became impatient to hear the answer. Tang Jinchen of the Great Tang family accepted Mukyan's decision, and in accordance with the agreement he agreed to hand over 1,000 silver coins as a token of their good intentions. Mukyan replied that they made the right choice. He believes there is no need for needless bloodshed now. At that moment, alliance leader Murim entered the negotiation room saying that he was glad that the negotiations were successful. But Mukyan was interested in why the leader of the Murima alliance had come for such a minor occasion. Alliance leader Murim said he was here for the same reason as everyone else. He said that thanks to the boy they had come to a peaceful agreement, so he had something to offer him. He suggested that Muqian should have a drink with him and keep the old man company. Muqian politely agreed to the old man's offer and was happy to keep him company. Alliance leader Murim treated the lad to his favorite drink, the wine of the agriculturist. Muqian asked the old man if it was normal for Alliance leader Murim to drink with a member of the evil faction. To which the old man replied, how could anyone reproach him for that, if the Alliance leader drinks with a man who is the deputy founder of a demonic cult? Also, the old man told Muqian that he always wanted to ask him something but there was no way to meet. He always wanted to ask the guy how the Sword Emperor skill was to him. When Muqian heard this question he almost choked, but the old man calmed him down. He asked him to relax and said that he was just wondering what happened in the last moment of this old man's life. After all, this old man displayed an incredible martial art style. He was like a thunderous dragon in the flesh and excelled as the clan leader. Until the very end, the old man asked Muqian how he thought they were on the same level, to which Muqian replied that he thought he wouldn't say for sure without fighting him. They are both the highest level Justice faction masters. The old man also asked what the guy thought could stop a master from reaching the Boundless Realm stage, preventing him from entering the Bottomless Realm. Muqian said that people think too much about the blade, thereby revealing too much uselessness and contemplation. The guy even explained what kind of thoughts a person has when he fights, such as how he would be able to kill his opponent, what style he would use next, how he would respond to the opponent's technique with that technique, what happened to the one who fought alongside him, when he would use the last technique. The old man said that while swinging the sword he doesn't concentrate on anything but the blade. He thinks he's past that stage. He simply makes the blade an extension of his own will. But the blade still has no will of its own, but it is only necessary to follow the blade's wishes and become one with it in a spiritual sense, the guy explained. The old man was left impressed when the guy not only gave his wands the power of a sword to crack the cup, but didn't even damage the table in the process. Muqian joked that the time will come and the old man will really reach the heights. These words were heard by the young red-haired lady. She kept aside because Grandpa said it was an important conversation. But how dare a guy talk to an old man arrogantly as if he knew better? Muqian suggested that lady just doesn't believe what the guy says, maybe he should prove it all to her himself. The young lady invited Muqian to fight, but the guy replied that it was not proper for the deputy founder of a demonic cult to fight a young girl. It would reflect badly on his reputation, but the guy offered to fight Oka Ryung instead. If she loses, he'll admit defeat and apologize for everything he did before. Oka Ryan was worried because it didn't make sense her sister was better with a sword than her. Muqian reassured the girl and assured that he would tell her how to move using sound vibrations. He also said that it was also worth remembering this higher demonic sword-wielding techniques that he had taught the girl. Well, her sister said the guy thinks too little of her and wants to beat her using her own sister. She immediately attacked Oka Ryan with the words that she would crush her moment Oka and chop her into pieces. Muqian was telling Oka Ryan what she should do in the fight. She should use the fourth move and then the fifth. The girl calmly dodged her sister's blow and made a counter lunge hitting the red-haired lady. Elder sister was puzzled as to why none of her A's reached the target like that and how Oka Ryan could be so strong. Oka Ryan used the Crimson Dragon Rising technique and her sister thought that after this attack, she wouldn't have any inner ki left at all and would be able to go on the attack. But after the Crimson Dragon Rising technique, Oka Ryan immediately used the Orchid Blossom technique under the blood-red light of the sun, the Crimson Orchid Blossom. Her older sister thought that Muqian was somehow giving Oka Ryan her inner ki, but the guy assured her that it was just the inner ki Ryan had. At this moment, Oka Ryan hesitated, thinking what if her sister gets hurt after these blows. She immediately attacked her younger sister with the White Orchid Fragrance technique and almost hit her sister's heart. But the fight was immediately stopped by the guy. He did say that when it comes to the sword, Oka Ryan shouldn't let him take over. Muqian said that only the end result mattered and in any case since he was defeated now he should go back. After these words, Muqian vanished like the wind. To think Muqian can increase a martial artist's strength so much, he may have become the strongest in the world, but it looks like he can't take over the world alone. What a pity, the deputy founder of the cult. Guy went back to his squad. They reported that something strange was going on until they were here. It seems the Dark Demon cult had merged with the Demon cult. They decided to become a part of the demonic cult themselves, and after the merger, their founder Jang Ingol was appointed as the deputy founder of the demonic cult. They come from a blood cult, a cult of tainted blood. They use the dead as soldiers and also practice forbidden techniques. Behind them is the one who wished to master them. He is a martial artist who has reached the spiritual realm of the Great Demon, one of the 4 demonic emperors, Jang Ingol. Muqian believed that the demonic cult rejected their ideology, so they suffered the consequences and went into the shadows. He hoped it wouldn't lead to anything serious. Muqian immediately arrived at the founder of the demonic cult and expressed his respect for him. Jiang Eagle expressed his respect in return and said that it was an honor to meet the demonic cult's greatest martial arts master. The demonic cult founder said that Muqian had done well and offered him a drink with the new deputy cult founder. But the lad replied that the journey had tired him out, he would join them another time, now if they would let him get away from them. Jiang Eagle thought the guy was very willful, to which the cult founder replied that he had told him about Muqian. He was the only one who kept a gun in the presence of the cult founder. Anyway, now when the two met, the cult founder asked Jiang Eagle what he thought of Muqian. Jiang Eagle replied that there was no need to worry so much. Even if Muqian is such a proud horse and does not obey his master, he is no more useful than a cargo pony. When a horse behaves so stubbornly, he is dealt with in the only way possible. Meanwhile, in the forest, Muqian was already waiting for a squad of assassins who thought they could deal with him quickly while they had the chance. But while they were thinking of attacking the guy, Muqian had already overtaken them and gone to the rear of the enemies, something the rats were getting at. Before the assassins could even think about it, they were stabbed to death with a blade. Muqian felt he was being chased and was curious to see who it was, but one of the assassins was already dead, and the one to whom he had cut open his stomach was regenerating like some kind of zombie. Unless he really isn't a zombie. It's Jiang Eagle's abilities, but why was he following him? The boy thought, but the guy immediately realized how Jiang Eagle's technique worked, because his minions had mastered some incredible techniques. If the head is unharmed, then the body can fully recover. It's really kind of creepy. But right now, that killer ability won't do any good. Since he can't die, no matter how much pain he's in, Muqian will make him spill everything he knows. Muqian found out that the sister girls were being held in the castle in the founder's quarters and immediately rushed to rescue the girls from captivity. He smashed the entire squad of guards of the founder's quarters, and with the body of one of the guards he smashed the cage in which the girls were being held. Now Muqian has to find out who is behind all this and ask them something, and the girls have agreed to help him in this. But they needed weapons for that, and since the guards didn't have any, Muqian offered to give his own and asked them to treat it with care. When the guy reached the founder's quarters, he broke the two fools' drunkenness, apologized for breaking it, but he really needed to meet them. Shame if they were up to something, they should have taken better care to conceal their plans. The agent they sent for Muqian was quite talkative. His words and the document he brought confirm that the two have been working together for a long time to get rid of the guy, and to defeat the Murama alliance by kidnapping the granddaughters of its leader. All this greatly spoiled the guy's mood, and with the words goodbye already wanted to use his technique. But suddenly the guy felt an intention to kill him from behind, and Jiang Eagle assured the guy that he didn't know anything at all. The person who intended to kill Muqian turned out to be Oka Ryan, who attacked him from behind, but he easily repelled her attack and cut open her stomach. Muqian asked the girl why she did that, to which she replied that it was just her grandfather's orders. She apologized for doing that to the guy after all he had done for her. As soon as Ryan died, Muqian was attacked from behind by her older sister and stabbed his own blade into his back. Immediately the cult founder jumped up and explained why he went to such lengths to get rid of Muqian. Because a guy uses his sword only for himself, to fulfill his own will and not the will of his master, it doesn't matter how big the sword is if it eventually pierces its owner. He was a guy who followed his heart and refused to share his power with others, and if he disagreed with something he would go against his master. What happened was the consequences of his arrogance. Now no one recognizes Muqian as the deputy founder of the demonic cult. After these words and everything that happened, Muqian killed the red-haired lady with a single hand movement. How dare they all do this to Muqian? The guy stood up and used Azura's demonic reverse blood flow art. Jiang Needle believed everyone that he was just a corpse that barely makes the body move. Using forbidden arts, he wouldn't be able to use this power forever. The whole hall attacked the guy with the desire to kill him, but Muqian exclaimed that no one would leave here alive. The moment everyone started attacking Muqian, Jiang Eagle used his binding technique and the guy couldn't move, almost defeated. He needs to urgently find a way to live. If this continues, he could die. Suddenly, a strange smoke appeared from nowhere, and out of it came the shouts of a squad of Muqian's aides. But before the demonic cult founder could realize what was really going on and clear the smoke, the trail of Muqian and his associates was long gone. He couldn't believe that someone could go against the demon clan and side with Muqian. While Chrysanthemum was trying to lead Muqian away from the demonic cult supporters, they were attacked from behind by Alliance founder Murim. He thought that if he let him use his granddaughters, Han Chungil would definitely be able to kill Mu Qiang, but he screwed up. But Chrysanthemum's incredible movements allowed him to come back from the blow of alliance found Amurim. Mu Qian asked his grandfather why he was doing this, why they were collaborating with a demonic cult. Grandfather explained that he cooperates with the demonic cult for the same reason that I am the founder of Han Chungil. As the head of the organization, he simply cannot allow Mu Qian to exist. Mu Qian is a threat to the balance between the evil and justice factions, and he used Ryan because Mu Qian trusted her more than anyone else, making it even easier to carry out the plan, and all they had to do now was use his trust to stab him in the back. Thanks to Mu Qian, Ryan, an illegitimate daughter from a concubine, was able to serve for the honor of her clan. These words made Mu Qian very angry, and he promised to kill the old man even if it was the last thing he had time to do. But Mu Qian's associate tried to calm him down because if he forced himself to use more power than he did now, it would not end well. With the words of asking for forgiveness, Mu Qian's associate threw the guy back and attacked the old man. May his master remain alive. But unfortunately, it did not help Mu Qian in any way. His comrade in arms was wounded with a single swing of the old man's sword. The associate told Mu Qian why he went against the demon clan and came to save the guy. Because every murderer in this world honors Mu Qian as a god, he is different from everyone forced to follow the path they chose for them and live in a world of murder. Mu Qian always went his own way and did what he himself desired. He has no idea what that means to all his associates and admirers. After these words, Chrysanthemum abruptly threw Mu Qian off the rock and he fell into the water, and Chrysanthemum himself was killed by the old man. Mu Qian woke up in the hospital all bandaged up, in debilitating pain from his injuries. When Mu Qian woke up, he saw two people, Dr. Seoyang Li and the top general Oka Chongyong. The general said that probably if it wasn't for the doctor's skill, it would be even harder to treat him. The doctor wondered who this guy was and why the general cared so much about him, but the general replied that he had never seen this guy before he was accidentally found floating down the river. The general explained that this guy was not just a stranger, and showed the doctor a jade tablet that even at first glance looks incredibly valuable. This tablet was on the guy when he was found. Judging from the wounds on the guy's body and the jade tablet, the general assumed that the guy was a high-level martial arts master. The doctor said that in that case, the guy was really unlucky. Although he escaped from the clutches of death, his meridian and internal channels were destroyed. He would never be able to use martial arts again. 6 months later, a guy who couldn't remember his past and didn't know who he was, nicknamed Gugwin, was tending horses. It's been 6 months since Gugwin got here. It's amazing that he can walk considering the condition of his leg and he still can't remember anything, said the general and the doctor watching the guy. And the guy seems to have lost all his memory because of that horrible wound. All the general has learned about Gugwang in the last 6 months is that he likes chrysanthemums and liquor. Why chrysanthemums? They must mean something to him. The general asked the doctor to examine the boy again, and when they arrived at the hospital, the doctor was discouraged because he was sure that the boy's meridians had been destroyed. It was incredible. His streams were almost completely restored and energy flowed through his body again. The general thought that even if it was practically impossible if that was the case, then martial artists wouldn't worry about overflowing ki if his flows and internal energy returned, then maybe his martial arts mastery would as well. Surely it's impossible to know, thought the doctor. However, he too had once practiced martial arts and tried hitting the guy. He had to see if his mastery of martial arts really came back. But the guy deftly dodged and hit the doctor back. This man though lost his memory and became an invalid. His body instinctively reacted and reflected the doctor's blow. The doctor assumed that since the guy's technique had been honed to such perfection, the guy was a master who had reached, by lesser and measure, the boundless realm. Mu Qian asked Dr. Seoyang Li why on earth he was trying to beat him. Supreme General Oka Chongyen was sure that this man's martial arts skills were incredible, but in his current state, he was not entrusted with any business. Seoyan Li assumed that the knowledge of martial arts must be imprinted in his subconscious like the rest of his memories. If you continue to stimulate him and awaken this knowledge naturally, perhaps his skills will surface along with his original personality. Does the doctor mean to say that they should continue? Jung Gun-sang thought and wondered if the doctor was sure he could take it all. The doctor was sure that if the young master practiced martial arts in front of him, the guy would show interest. A young master must learn to swing the sword not arbitrarily, but to use the correct movements, because only then will these movements become part of his body. The doctor explained to the young master that movement was not limited to a single form, and the boy would only achieve power when all these forms combined. The techniques by which the young master takes these movements are important, but also important are the methods of developing internal energy that utilize breathing techniques. The young master had to use the technique of perfecting breathing to control the natural ki energy in his body. Meanwhile, while the doctor was training the young master, Muqian suddenly recalled the last moments of his life before the arduous memory recovery. The young master noticed it and wanted to help, but the doctor stopped him, because it was too dangerous to approach him now, because he did not understand what was happening to the boy. It seemed to be the same total body change technique that the legends speak of. The goal of all martial artists is an ant that only achieved once, so the doctor couldn't believe it even when he saw it with his own eyes. The young master almost immediately ran up to the guy and tried to help him. Gugwang had truly ascended higher than the heavens themselves. The day came when General Engjin Ok reached the gate of Chongyan Ok's land. The guard ordered the soldiers to open the gate, to show their drill and mind their manners in greeting the general. Jiang Gunsang greeted the general. He could not at all imagine how difficult his journey had been. The general was sure that Jiang Gunsang had a lot to do and thanked him for coming out to greet him. Jiang Gunsang did as he was supposed to, but suddenly the general noticed that behind him was a guy the general hadn't seen before. Jiang Gunsang was just about to tell the general about him. He told him what the boy's name was and what had happened to him. Jiang Gunsang also told the general that the guy's energy and martial arts mastery had been restored through the full body change technique, but his memory still hadn't returned, and they still didn't know the guy's name, so they gave him the nickname Gugwan. The master, who was mortally wounded by his own sword and lost his memories, likes to drink, he likes chrysanthemums, and the guy hates plum flowers. The general was very curious as to why exactly plum flowers. The general asked Jiang Gunsang to provide him with the sword with which the man had been pierced. Without even picking it up, the general could tell that it was a very unusual sword. At first glance, the sword looked crude, but it was engraved with noble symbols. The general asked Gugwang if he remembered anything while looking at the sword. Gugwan replied to the general that he had heard what was going on, but wasn't sure if it was his sword. The boy just felt a longing and coldness piercing him. The general realized that the guy needed time for his memory to come back, and asked the guy to join the cult of the Shivering Dark Wind and help him. The boy refused, for he had been rescued by Jiang Gunsang, and he was glad to be part of the house, and to take care of his horses and youngest son. Jiang Gunsang explained to the guy that his father needs him more than he needs himself, and serving his father is a good opportunity for the guy. The guy agreed, but only on one condition: if Jiang Gunsang left this world, he would do whatever he wanted. The general accepted these terms and was glad the guy was being straightforward about it. He told him to bring his things. After the guy left, Jiang Gunsang decided to ask the general if he had found out anything about this guy. But doesn't anything come to his mind when he hears the phrases martial arts master and plum blossoms? Jiang Gunsang recalled alliance leader Murim Chonggak Ok's technique, the white stream plum blossom sword. The general didn't know exactly what had happened between Gugwan and the leader of the Murima alliance, but if the Murima alliance found out that the guy was in their possession, it could turn into big trouble. Some guys in black masks sneak into Oka Chongyen at night and see a guy drinking and decide to attack him. Gugwan destroyed all but one of the guys in black masks. The guy explained to him that it didn't matter at all why he was there, and that thanks to the view of the beautiful moon the guy was in a good enough mood to be merciful. Gugwan also explained that if this guy showed up there and again with his pathetic intentions to destroy him, he would destroy him too faster than he could take a breath. Returning from his mission, the lad moved immediately to the blue brothel of the warrior cult without a shadow. The boy explained to his mistress that the one who met them was a master of incredible strength, for all rank 1 assassins, including him, had been defeated with a single blow. The lady immediately recognized him. It was the second master of the Boundless Realm and former deputy founder of the demonic cult Muqian. Why would the deputy founder of a demonic cult be working under Engjin Oak? The guy thought. The lady explained to him that Muqian had been mortally wounded a couple years ago by a conspiracy between a demonic cult and the leader of the Murima alliance, and had disappeared afterward. To repay his care after he lost his memory, the guy started working for General Engjin Ok. The mistress realized that it was indeed Muqian, and that had already given them a lot. After that, she ordered the boy to go to his warriors and treat his wounds. Mistress was already speculating on how she would get to him and whether or not she would be able to use the information about his past and hint to him that he would be helped to get revenge. In any case, the news that the guy had survived would surely reach the demon cult soon, and when that happened, the entire world of Murim would shudder. Meanwhile, inside the palace on the training ground, Muqian was being taught how to wield a sword. Defending himself, Muqian hit his trainer harder. He was puzzled, because it was sword training and one cannot use martial arts. But facing an opponent armed with a sword, one must be prepared to do whatever it takes to survive, Muqian thought. Mr. Yongjin Ok asked the guy to teach Muqian how to wield a sword, but how could he teach anything if all he did was get punched in the neck? Okang, the grandson of Yongjin Oka, asked Muqian to teach him the higher martial arts, such as the sword techniques to chop anything or the technique to smash a cobblestone with a single blow of his fist. Muqian showed Okhang the palace armory, where there are countless scrolls describing secret techniques collected from all over the world. Muqian explained that while reading them, he realized that there is no supreme martial art in the world. For example, if we imagine that two styles of martial arts are equal, then it becomes clear that all martial arts relate to each other like rock, scissors, and paper. Shield bearers are weak against pikemen, pikemen can't do anything against archers, and archers can't handle shield bearers. By executing a consistent blue castle attack, Muqian proved to Okhang that it's not the technique itself that matters, but the person using it. Okhang was baffled that the guy hadn't told him about it sooner, and had been pounding him the whole time. Muqian explained that if he keeps hitting Okhang, the guy will start ducking to avoid getting hit and then want to hit back. Naturally, the guy's skills will improve. Yongjin Ok and Ma Rying, Deputy General of the Northeastern Army, while playing a board game talked about Mongolia having a new Khan. Ma Rying admitted that this fact had been bothering him for some time now, because they were usually busy with infighting, but once they united, it became a big problem. We need to deal with them before they bring all their tribes together. Yongjin Ok suggested that in such a case, he did not hesitate and asked Ma Rying to give him 200 archers and 10,000 infantrymen. The rest would be taken care of by the great empire of the Dark Wind Army and General Major. Ma Rying was worried that there would be many more and asked Yongjin Ok if he had a plan, but Yongjin Ok explained that the general is worried about nothing. They need a plan against the wolf pack at all. All they need is to deal with their leader. Yongjin Ok still gathered the men and sent them out to find the very same wolf pack. Okhang was overjoyed to have joined the great imperial army of Dark Wind, for now he could accomplish great feats and his grandfather would finally respect him. But to accomplish the great feats that Okhang had spoken of, one would have to kill. Muqian wondered if the boy was ready for that. A lot of blood is spilled in war, and to stay alive, a guy needs to have enough courage to kill the enemy as soon as he sees his weak spot. When the time comes to take someone's life, a soldier's sword must strike without delay. Killing was a regular part of Muqian's past, and the evidence is his ability to unconsciously find his opponent's weaknesses. Muqian himself wondered what kind of man he was, why his martial arts skills were so honed, and how many people he had managed to take the lives of. Muqian also pondered whether he could have killed someone innocent and whether they had a family. The Grand Imperial Army decided to make camp and take a little rest from the road and the quest. Suddenly, MANHUA, Lady of Frost Flower, came up behind Muqian. She was puzzled as to how someone like him could get the position of Centurion Captain. Muqian realized that Madame had a beef with him, but he didn't feel like talking about it at all, and asked her to leave him alone. MANHUA noticed that Muqian thought that since he had General Yongjin's back, he was allowed to do anything, but Madame didn't care about that. MANHUA decided to attack the guy from behind, but was unexpectedly rebuffed and lost. Rising up, MANHUA threatened Muqian that he would pay for what he had done. Muqian would have let it pass by if it was just hostility, but now that MANHUA-sama had decided to destroy him, the guy had no choice. Muqian asked the lady not to regret her actions and used the sword-wielding technique, concentrating the air with ki energy. Madame MANHUA was surprised. After all, this technique could only be used by top-ranked masters. Muqian noticed that Lady MANHUA was grasping everything on the fly and suggested that she leave if she didn't want to fight. Madame MANHUA was damn curious about who this guy was and how he could afford to behave like this. Unfortunately, Muqian himself didn't know that. All he knew was that he had lost his memory after being betrayed by someone he trusted. The guy wondered who he was before he lost his memory, but it didn't matter so much if he remembered his past or not, because right now he was just paying his debt to Okusan who saved his life. Muqian hoped that he had satisfied Madame MANHUA's curiosity and asked to be left alone at last. So casual onlookers of what was happening, Lim Chung, the captain of the dozen decided to approach Madame Manhua to chat more with her. Lim Chung felt that Manhua should be proud that she had managed to fight a master like that guy at all. Manhua realized that their captain was a far more amazing person than they had thought. The girl wasn't sure about it, but she was convinced that the war would end sooner than planned. The news that Mu Qian had survived had finally reached the demon cult. Hang Mo Sang found out that when the guy was on the verge of death when he was mortally wounded, he was saved by General Yongjin Oka's son, and now the guy's name is Gugwan. He joined the Great Imperial Army of the Dark Wind. Hang Mo Sang also learned that the guy had lost his memory of events from when he was in the assassination squad. Seo Muyun suggested that everyone should massacre the guy before his memories came back to him. The guys assumed that the guy had forgotten the cultivation technique he possessed, and if they used that as a weakness, the guy would be easier to destroy. The founder of the devil cult reported that it wasn't that easy. Mu Qian had joined the Imperial Army, and it was impossible to oppose an entire army. The guys had a solution: they could conspire with someone in the Imperial Army who has an account with General Yongjin Oku. If they targeted the general, they could also target his subordinates, including Mu Qian. The devil cult founder and his subordinates hoped that this time they would get rid of Mu Qian. Meanwhile, Mu Qian single-handedly met Jinchen Cole and his army who attacked them. The great Khan of Mongolia, Jinchen Cole, did not think he would meet a warrior as strong as Gugwan. Han Mongolia Jinchen Cole was impressed by the guy's fighting spirit and pounced on him. Mu Qian withstood Jinchen's first attack, but the latter had no intention of stopping at all. Yongjin Oka's grandson, Okang, noticed the guy being pushed back and suggested that the captain help Gugwang. Hearing this, the guy asked them to stay away as they would only get in the way. Jinchen Cole didn't expect the guy to be able to break his sword, but this wasn't his only sword. After summoning the warrior souls, Han once again attacked the guy, for he wasn't going to let him win so easily. Mu Qian recognized that it was a worthy fight, and pierced into the heart of Han Jinchen Cole, the great warrior of Mongolia, with his sword. And so the Mongol invasion ended in victory, although General Yongjin Oku ordered each tribe to be slaughtered so that they could never again gather their strength. However, Mu Qian secretly left one of them alive, as he did not want senseless slaughter, and while the guy did get some credit for his contribution to this war, nothing beats a cup of good brew. According to a book the guy read in the Great Imperial Library, a person should feel guilty when he kills someone. However, the guy felt only strange pleasures. Suddenly, the sound of cum came to the boy. Who could play the cum in such a remote place, the boy thought. The guy thought it was strange, but it was a tune that sounded very familiar to him, and he decided to go look. The boy didn't think there could be a house standing so deep in the forest thicket, but he decided to get closer nonetheless. The melody the boy heard was very familiar to him. Perhaps he had heard it before he lost his memory. The guy noticed that there was only one person inside the house, but suddenly this person knows something about his past. Yongjin Oku was surprised at how brightly the moon was shining. He was pleased that the war had ended faster than he had expected. The servant told Yongjin Oku that General Jilsu Ma and the Centurion captains had come to see him. Since it was already quite late, the general asked them to be quiet, since everyone was already asleep. The general decided to inquire of the boys what had brought them to him at such a late hour. Well, the boys were sure that the general himself called them, because someone who called himself his servant, from the residence and brought them a message. The general explained that he had not called them. He thought it suspiciously strange. Suddenly, the commander of the Great Imperial Army, Gong Gong Hai, arrived and announced that he had received orders from his superiors to arrest Yongjin Oku for rebellion against the Great Imperial family. The general doubted that the leadership had given him such an order and wondered if Gong Gong Hai would take full responsibility for his words. Gong Gong Hai admitted that the general was already getting on his nerves, but this was the last straw. He planned to destroy the general and tell the emperor the truth. Meanwhile, Gugwan, going in, complimented the beautiful girl on what a fine performance it was. Gugwan apologized to the girl for walking in uninvited and explained that he followed the sound of Kumar because he wanted to ask something. The girl explained that the name of the music the guy was listening to was a magical composition of 1,000 songs. Gugwan realized that this beautiful girl who played Kumar knew who he was. The girl explained that she knew the guy before he lost his memory, knew that he was the deputy founder of the demonic cult and that he was a top-level master. It was also known to the girl that the guy's skills were all based on the chastity cultivation technique. The girl realized that she had to leave quickly, as she didn't think the guy would be able to resist for long after hearing the magic composition of 1,000 songs. The girl recommended that the guy cut himself off from everything and give himself the peace of mind his body deserves. The girl accused Deputy Founder Muqian of lying to them about his cultivation technique being based on chastity. The guy wanted to know how true what the girl had said was. He wanted to know if he was really the Muqian she was talking about. The girl said that she was the one who taught him how to play. Kumar confirmed that he was the deputy founder of the demon cult, but the cult had betrayed him. For whatever reason, the guy is still alive, and now the demon cult has gotten scared of the consequences and started messing with his life. The girl admitted that she had done her job, the rest was up to them. She explained that there was likely a real massacre going on at General Eng Jin-oka's residence. The general didn't think that Gong Gong Hai would get involved with the demon cult. It was almost as if he had decided to become a eunuch because he was afraid to live as a man. Gong Gong Hai's sword swung so fast that the general couldn't parry the blows, and they were so fast probably because he had gotten lighter just below the waist. Gong Gong Hai couldn't bear the strain and attacked the general, but he couldn't even imagine that the general had put all of his remaining strength into this final strike. The general used his severing evil sword strike, but Gong Gong Hai repelled the blow. Seo Muyun recognized that Gong Gong Hai was truly magnificent, for now even the greatest master of the imperial army had proven to be a worthy opponent for him. All the other soldiers were asked by Seo Muyun to take care of the remaining Dark Wind cult soldiers inside and not leave anyone alive. Gong Gong Hai thanked Deputy Founder Nung Bigai for his help, because thanks to him, he was able to handle Yong Jinai with ease. Suddenly, Gugwang burst into the residence, and from Seo Muyun Gong Gong Hai's reaction, he realized that this was the guy they were looking for. Gugwang didn't care if they were once with sworn enemies in the past or for any other reason they sought his death. What mattered to him was what was happening to him in the present. The guy just wanted to enjoy life, but now that the guys have killed the man he served, they have to be ready to face the consequences. Seo Muyun was startled and ordered all of his soldiers from the All-Demon clan to attack the guy, because they had to destroy him. Gong Gong Hai recognized that Muqian was good at what he did and asked Seo Muyun for permission to finish him off. Seo Muyun didn't mind, but asked the guy to be careful. Although Muqian was weakened, he was still a master who had reached the boundless realm. Finding a sword master as skillful as Gugwang is not easy at all, so Gong Gong Hai proposed a one-on-one fight. Gugwang wanted to wait for Gong Gong Hai to dare to attack him, so he made the first move himself. Gong Gong Hai recognized that controlling the sword with ki was an interesting and spectacular technique, but ineffective because it was only needed as a distraction. Gugwang had plenty of little tricks like that, so he was able to put the guy down with the first punch. Barely able to get up, Gong Gong Hai decided to take revenge on Gugwang with his poison dance of the purple dragon technique. Exhausted by Gugwang, Gong Gong Hai decided that the guy had had enough and promised that he would definitely bring chrysanthemums to the guy's grave. Seo Muyun was worried about Gong Gong, because if Gugwang's dormant powers somehow broke out, he would become invincible. The guy was so strong that no one could defeat him even fighting hand to hand. Gugwang felt an emptiness inside him, his body as heavy as a stone and his mind a flowing water. He thought his life was free of attachments and wondered what he had fought for so far. Would his death be exactly like this? In fact, the guy only wished for one thing to be at the end of it all, and that's for sure. Gugwang pulled himself together out of the last of his strength and got to his feet no matter what. Seo Muyun and Gong Gong Hai were shocked to see what was happening because a second ago, the guy was almost out of breath, but now even his aura of internal energy had changed. Gong Gong Hai jumped on the guy, accusing him of using some forbidden technique. A person can't change that much in an instant. The enraged Gong Gong Hai, using his flickering sword path power, swooped down on the guy with the desire to destroy him already forever. Gugwang was clearly not his level. The opponent, after all, the guy was much stronger, and it seems that his memory had returned to him. Meanwhile, Zhonglong and Han Chunlong then I was on the dais watching and thinking that maybe they had overestimated Muqian, because the guy had long forgotten his technique. Seeing the bright flash from the ki-reinforced sword strike, Zhonglong and Han Chunlong decided to go down and check what had happened. After descending, they were dumbfounded to find that the entire Imperial Palace army and the demon cult's elite forces had been annihilated. Muqian, who was observing the whole event, decided to say hello to the one who had traveled 1,000 miles and the Lord of the Flute. Muqian wondered how long it had been since he had last seen their faces. Even though they were enemies, he was glad to see them again. Muqian noticed that they were curious to know if the guy's memories had returned, and he hastened to reassure them that he had fully recovered his memory and was waiting for any questions. The guy also noticed that the guys didn't have the guts to flee. But if they decided to fight him, he would surely be killed. Muqian even felt a little sorry for them. the deputy founder of the demon cult, Muqian, announced that he would rewrite the history of the demon cult, in other words, take over the demon cult. Muqian promised to give Zhonglong and Han Chunlong a choice to either suffer at the guy's hands as the cult leader's chain dogs, or join the guy in taking over the cult and become his chain dogs. Overwhelmed, Zhonglong and Han Chunlong took deputy founder Muqian's side and bowed to him. Muqian ordered them to gather the remaining men and serve him to write the history of Murim in blood. Guanji, the captain of the 1,000-man Great Imperial Army of the Dark Wind, expressed his gratitude to Muqian for saving them from the ambush, for without him they would not have survived. Guanji asked deputy founder Muqian why he decided to save them after all, since now that the guy's memory had returned to him, he didn't need to be with them anymore. Muqian explained that it was only because of the memories of when he was a Gugwang. Guanji stated that when Muqian's wounds heal, he can go wherever he wants, because General Yongjin Ok is gone and the Imperial Court is falsely accusing them of all sorts of crimes, so there's nowhere to go. The guys discussed everything and came to serve under Muqian, even considering that Muqian was the vigilante behind the founder of the demon cult. Muqian recognized that this would be an invaluable help to him and he could count on them from now on. Mrs. MANHUA asked Muqian to speak to her privately if it wouldn't bother the guy. Madam decided to clarify if Muqian memories remembered from when he was a Gugwan. Muqian explained that he still has those memories, but they seem unreal to him. After making sure the guy remembered everything perfectly, Mistress decided to ask him what he planned to do next. Muqian explains that he needs more warriors. Even though he's talking about the place, he still doesn't have enough men to compete with the cult. Muqian has hired a man named Seal Muji to train everyone. The guy also plans to further spread his influence. The boy noticed that the mistress would not go for a word in her pocket, and he had known someone who could convince him of something just as neatly. But that is exactly what Muqian asked them to do, and the mistress is only obeying his orders. The girl was very curious as to why Muqian had named the squad the Shangxi Province Demonic Cult Squad, and suggested that he choose a different name if he still wanted to take revenge on them. In the demon cult, the strong dominates the weak, and if a guy challenged the demon cult as a representative of another cult, it would be considered a full-scale war. Well, if the guy challenges the founder as the deputy founder of the cult, it will just be a power struggle, so the founder's follower will have to choose whose side to take. It is probably because of this plan that founder Jungil Khan will be trapped. The founder of the devil cult hadn't felt any increase in inner strength since reaching the boundless demon realm. The founder wondered what he should do after his plans worked out poorly and he lost Nungbigai the 1,000 miles past, the Lord of the Flute, and their minions who now serve Muqian. If the founder decides to gather all those who serve him, they will defect to the Muqian side with great clarity. The founder laughed when Muqian said that though he might be able to make the journey of 1,000 miles alone, he would not be able to capture all of Murim. But by the way, even the founder himself could not make the journey of 1,000 miles. The founder realized that he misses the times when he and Muqian were just having fun, having drinks. Muqian wondered why that Manhua woman was asking him so many questions and caught himself thinking that he needed a drink. Walking down the street, the guy noticed 2 of Huang An's 5 demons harassing the guy, and was glad he'd have something to look at while he drank. Those bared their swords and threatened to hurt the guy, but it would have to be the guy they hit on first. Muqian recognized the sword the guy had pulled out and decided to ask where he got it from. Muqian explained that the name of this sword was Shining Jade, and it was fought with by his teacher Yu Bek, the elusive swordsman. The guy slowed Muqian down and, taking him to his teacher's grave, explained that Yu Bek had taught him how to wield a sword and had left him his sword after his death. The boy, on the other hand, said that his teacher spoke very highly of him, saying that he was his most skillful student. Muqian asked the boy how he met the teacher. He said that he had met him in a cave on Mount Hua. At that time the teacher was living in seclusion due to circumstances. Muqian thought that it was because of what happened to him. After all, maybe the demon clan was pressuring him because he was close to the guy. The boy said that their teacher had died after great agony, and no medicine could help him, because what was happening to him was called ki distortion. Over time, adepts of the demonic arts deplete their internal ki energy, and this is accompanied by pain depending on the amount of cultivated energy in their bodies. Usually those who are around at such times grant them death to put them out of their misery. Guy thought that Muqian didn't know about this since he was a member of the Justice faction. One must train hard before entering the world of martial arts. After all, no one would like to hear that Yu Bek's disciple died after a battle. It was hard for Muqian to realize the fact that his teacher Yu Bek was no longer alive, so he decided to go out for a drink. Meanwhile, founder Hian Mo Sang was contemplating sacrificing to the heavenly spirit Jiangshi the clan members who had been hunted down. The guys used everything they have for their goal of lording over everyone as the demon god of the demon clan. Jungil Khan, the founder of the demon clan, sent his subordinates to his enemy, deputy founder Mu Qian. Mu Qian asked Elder Jigo Yeo if they were ashamed of such an unexpected visit. He was interested if they believed that he would really believe the founder of Jungil Khan. Jigo Yeo knew the deputy founder's fury, but they wouldn't be able to do anything even if he decided to execute them. However, they arrived there only to fulfill the last order of the founder Jungil Khan. The founder ordered them to serve now only under the deputy founder, even if they had been enemies before. Mu Qian didn't understand at all why the founder would order such a thing, or what his ultimate goal was. Deputy founder John Ingol decided to make a late visit to the founder for a rebellion. The deputy founder was pleased that the founder was quick-witted and offered to give him a good surrender. The founder explained to Janingole that if he claims to be the founder, he must meet Mu Qian, but whether he has the courage to do so. John Ingalu realized that the founder would not voluntarily surrender, thus leaving him no choice. Although Jiang Yinglo's skills were nowhere near equal to those possessed by Mu Qian, he was still rightfully the founder of the demon clan. The founder explained to Jiang Yingol that he wouldn't be able to take his place so easily, but since the latter didn't understand, the founder decided to explain differently. The founder hoped that Jiang Yingol now realized that those Jiangsha were not enough to deal with him. The founder could have simply escaped due to his power, but Jiang Yingol wondered why he chose to stay. The founder has been thinking a lot lately that no matter whether it's Mu Qian's revenge or Jiang Yingol's rebellion, it all leads only to death and handing over his place, and if the outcome doesn't change, the founder's choice doesn't matter anymore. The founder had to make a choice for the sake of the demon cult, and Jungil Khan, following the law of the power of the strong over the weak, appointed Mu Qian as his heir. The founder had had enough of the futile fiddling with Jiangsha and decided to get rid of them all at once with the purple chi rising moon strike. After a good hit by the founder, Yang Ongjiu declared that he would personally behead the founder, and meanwhile while the guy was attacking, John Yingalu prepared his archers. But it seems Jan Yingalu didn't know that ordinary arrows couldn't harm the founder. The founder had planned to deal with Elder Yang Ongjiu first, but suddenly, his body was pierced by an arrow that somehow miraculously passed through his defense-enhanced chi. It turned out that Jan Yingol was well aware of the fact that ordinary arrows couldn't harm the founder, but if an arrow was fired by him who was on the same level as the founder, the end would come. Jan Yingol thanked founder Jingil Khan for what he did and won the fight. The founder congratulated Jiang Yingol. He had earned his place as founder, though he couldn't hold it for long because Mu Qian would soon attack with those he was sure. As for Mu Qian, Jiang Yingol was not worried because unlike the founder, who was sitting uselessly in his post, he had already taken care of him. Dark Moon assassin Zhorn Ring has the strength to deal with Mu Qian for good. The founder of the demon clan's influence had fallen too low, for Jian Ingol had even contacted the Dark Moon Society. But according to Jan Ingol, influence goes to the winners, and it doesn't matter how exactly they achieved victory. Jan Ingol ordered the founder to be stripped of his energy center and bound so that he could not find deliverance in death, for even so he could be of use to him. Jiang Ingol was sure that if he defeated Mu Qian he could fix himself all the fans. The guy was close to uniting all of Murim under his rule. In the forest, Jiang Yingol met alliance leader Chonggak Oka and asked if he was tired, as he still had a lot of Jiangsha. How dare he do such a thing? Chongsak Oka thought. Does he really think he can take over all of Murim like that? John Ingol was quite impatient, for soon he would have the entire Murim alliance in his hands. Meanwhile, Mu Qian has taken over all the clans in the region and preparations for war are going according to his plan. Pondering on furthering his grand plans for Mu Qian, the guy suddenly came under a surprise attack from behind. Mu Qian was very angry. He didn't know who sent this guy and why, but just how angry he was, he could destroy him along with this forest. The guy realized that the master of the boundless realm was even stronger than he thought. After all, the guy thought if he prepared himself, he would have a chance to deal with him, but it seems that wasn't the case. But the guy was on a mission, and since he was there as an assassin he couldn't just run away. The fight was crazy, but it ended with the guy simply pushing Mu Qian into a cliff. Han Chunlong and his entire team began their search for deputy founder Mu Qian. After all, they had to find him as soon as possible. They tried to find out from the guy who pushed Mu Qian into the trap how they could get him out of there, but he wouldn't talk. Then it was explained to this guy that they would keep him alive just to find out who was behind it all. It was important for the people who hired that guy to buy some time for the head of Jiang Ingol to completely take over the demon clan. Meanwhile, Jan Ingol was going to execute the founder of the demonic cult and then destroy Mu Qian's forces and become the lord. Looking at the throne, John Ingol was sure it would become his property, and then it would be over. The elders were certain of one thing, that they must free themselves and stop thinking of themselves as part of Murim. That the government forces entered Murim was sheer stupidity, and now no one knows when they will decide to betray them and throw them out. The demonic clan army would not miss the opportunity to strike, taking advantage of deputy founder Muqian's absence. Everyone was once a soldier and defended their country, and now that the situation has worsened, everyone's first thought is to run away, Manhua thought. Turns out the deputy founder Muqian was found long ago, and this circus that was going on just to get these people around. Whoever was after Muqian's life was surprised at how the guy got out and cost the trap. Muqian pretended to be there because he would never have fallen for such a trap in his life. Muqian and Seal MJI had discussed this whole circus a couple of days ago. The guy who was trying to destroy the deputy founder was skillful, and if his target wasn't Muqian, he would surely have succeeded. Muqian suggested that the mercenary take the opportunity to join his team, for he had failed the assignment and would I just continue to serve as an assassin, and since by doing so he had failed his employers, they might decide to deal with him. John Ring didn't have much choice, so he accepted Muqian's offer and will do whatever he says. Muqian decided to leave the guy and prepare for the next plan. He informed Seal Muji and Manhua to get ready because soon they will meet those who attempted on the deputy founder's life. Muqian's team decided to proceed strictly according to plan, drive up in a DT and break right into the heart of the demon clan. Suddenly, Jan Ingol heard unintelligible sounds coming from the guard post. The deputy founder realized that someone had broken through the 100,000 Great Mountains, considered impregnable for the last 1,000 years. Deputy founder Jan Ingol decided to go and personally handle the situation himself. Suddenly, the deputy founder heard a voice telling him that wasn't it someone like him who would be able to do it. Turning around, deputy founder Jan Ingol saw that it was the same Muqian. Meanwhile, Muqian's team decided to sneak through the inner fortress and reach the main hall of the demon clan. The guards led by Nengbin Yu tried to protect the main hall at all costs and respond to the enemy's attack. Muqian had issues to sort out with the deputy founder, hence the need to make all this mess so early in the morning. Hyang Mo Sang realized that if Muqian was trying to solve this by force, there was no way to stop him, and he needed to convince Seo Kieng Han to intervene. The boy explained to the supreme leader that Muqian had used a government-affiliated army in the battle, and clan rules forbid the use of outside forces. But Muqian simply took under his charge those who were abandoned by the state, and the guy didn't see any problem with that. Since it wasn't against the rules and remains a clan matter, and Seo Kieng Han is a member of the Council of Elders, he shouldn't interfere. According to the right of the strong, the members of the demon clan should welcome their new leader. Realizing that the elder was not on his side, Jan Ingol used the black demonic death palm to escape. Jan Ingol didn't think Muqian would die, but he also didn't think he would meet him again so soon. Jan Ingol couldn't just give up. After all, this was a demon clan matter, and he still had a couple trump cards up his sleeve. Muqian still managed to catch up with the escaped Jiang Ingol, but the latter did not despair, and decided to show the guy the perfect jiangshi he had created over dozens of years of research. Jan Ingol was proud that his masterpieces surpassed the martial artists who ruled these lands. In a matter of minutes, Muqian had destroyed jiangshi, and dozens of years of Jiang Ingol's research had been wasted. Jan Ingol has strived for decades to become the leader of the clan, killing and laboring to become stronger at any cost. But Muqian is not at all interested in anything other than the martial arts themselves. He doesn't care about power over the world. In Muqian's opinion, all Jan Ingol did was scheming behind his back and working black magic. Now he is no more than a third-rate villain. Jan Ingol was not ready to die yet, for he had not yet reached his goal, but despite this Muqian destroyed him by pushing him off the cliff. Finally, Muqian ended his so long and thorny journey. Zhong Long ran up to Muqian and announced the great news. Muqian's team had won. The victory gave them an easy win as they caught them off guard. Well, as for the main villain, Jungil Khan was imprisoned in an underground prison. After a while, Muqian decided to go down to the dungeon and ask Jungil Khan why he had betrayed him. Toth has said many times that they couldn't put up with Muqian's unpredictable nature. Jungil Hanna was just jealous of the guy, as he was a martial artist and couldn't bear to see someone stronger than him. But soon Jungil Khanna realized that his betrayal had led him only to emptiness, and handed over all his powers to Muqian. Jungil Khanna asked Muqian to grant him peace with his blade, as did Chongakoku. Muqian thought long and hard, but decided to fulfill Jungil Khan's last wish and sent him to the next world. After a while, Muqian came out to the demon clan members with a beautiful speech saying that they had united under one demon clan after shedding rivers of blood. Muqian hoped that this ritual would unite them all by drinking this ash water, prepared according to the hierarchical records. They would all become united. though not by blood, but by will. All the subordinates welcomed their new Lord Mukyan, who filled the world with light. Meanwhile, in the Asu blood cult base, the deputy leader of the blood cult, Samayom, healed Jang Ingol. Jang Ingol was lucky that Samayom's men were at the bottom of the river, otherwise he would have surely died. Jan Ingalu wondered why they would save a demon clan member, since the Asu blood cult hates the demon clan. But Samayom thought that Jang Ingol would join them. After all, he hates Mukyan. Jan Ingalu explained that even if they unite, they can't oppose anything, because they can't kill Mukyan. Samayom consoled Jang Ingol that even if they couldn't kill Mukyan, they could definitely get rid of him. In the morning, MANHUA decided to inform her Mr. Mukyan that the morning meeting had long since begun, but upon opening the door she noticed that the room was completely empty. MANHUA raised the whole house to the ears of the girl and informed everyone that their Mr. Mukyan was missing. Mukyan advanced towards Stilsant Mountain. As he reached it, he felt the presence of a faint demonic energy. It looks like this is not an easy place, he thought. Mukyan was already approaching the place that had been prepared for him by the bloody cult of Asu. Joningola gave an order, and men in red capes and from the bloody cult of Asu swooped down on the guy. Mukyan realized that the blood cult of Asu had prepared all this to destroy him, but how stupid of them, the lad thought. Mukyan admitted that the guys had a good attempt to try and strengthen Jiangxia Anti with the demonic counter, but after all, he also uses demonic energy, so it would only make Mukyan stronger. Mukyan wanted to dispel their sorcery, but it was stronger than he had anticipated, the sword bouncing off the guys. Samayom wondered how Mukyan's face would change when despair gripped him. So Ma-Yom was sure that this time Mukyan would definitely be the end. He used the unholy ritual of punished souls against the guy. Mukyan had never seen such power and decided he needed to get it over with as soon as possible. The fight was very hard. Samayom and Jang Ingol thought they had succeeded and got rid of Mukyan. They were incredibly happy that there was no trace of Mukyan left. Mukyan didn't realize what was happening. He was falling from the sky and had no time to think. After falling, Mukyan didn't realize where he was at all and thought it was some kind of curse or illusion, but seeing the legendary being, the guy was even more surprised.